Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 221 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. Our weekly podcast that streams live here on twitch.tv/Sifted Games every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm Shane Satterfield, your humble host. I'll be slinging you around the world of video games for the next couple hours. And alongside me, I have my bro, Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Not much. Had some games to play this week, at least.
We did. Some great games. How's life in the fast lane, bro? I wouldn't know. I have no idea what the fast lane is anymore.
Yeah,
I don't know if there is a fast lane.
I don't remember what driving is like.
Yeah, I hardly ever do it. I'll say one thing, man. Like, I'm not putting any miles on my car. That's for sure.
I have not filled the tank up in like a month and a half.
Yep.
Like,
2 months it takes for me to use a tank of gas now. It's crazy. And also alongside, we have Mitch Sikorsky, who's handling our TriCaster TD duties today. What's up, Mitch?
I was going to say, I haven't had a car since I've been out here, and it's been, so I haven't filled a tank of gas in 6 months.
Yeah. You don't really need a car out here. Now, the public transit in LA is not as good as San Francisco. The PT there is amazing. But it is, compared to a lot of cities, in LA is pretty good, especially now that they have the trains that run all the way across the city and stuff like that. So you can absolutely live here. And you had a bike as well, and that helps too.
Yeah, but, past tense, had a bike.
Yeah. So Mitch moved here, bought a bike, got it stolen, bought another one, and then sold it.
Well, I did get a flat tire, so that's like half the other reason.
No, you got the flat, then you sold it, right?
Yeah.
That's how it went. People in chat are saying that your mic is a little bit low, Mitch. So if you want to just step away from the TD for just a second and bump it up. Yeah. So anyway, we have a big show for you guys today. As Matt said, some big games came out this week. We're going to talk about Ghost of Tsushima, which may be the last big PlayStation 4 exclusive before we move on to PlayStation 5. And we're going to talk about Paper Mario, the Origami King, the latest Switch exclusive. And it also might be the last Switch exclusive for a while. We're going to talk about that as well. Mitch, are you back yet?
Yes, I'm back.
Cool.
Check and let me know if that's better.
Yeah, chat, let us know if Mitch's mic is a little better for you guys now. We're going to go on to our poll of the week at this point. Our poll of the week last week was about backwards compatibility. And I mentioned on the show last week that we were going to start pulling quotes from some of you guys from our poll of the week. And that inspired you guys to leave a lot of comments on the poll, which is great. But we'll go through the results of the poll first. This was far and away the closest poll of the week we've ever done. And that generally is the sign of a good poll. I'm learning, people. I'm getting better at the options. You generally, when you make a poll, you don't want there to be like 2 options that get all the votes and the rest get none. That generally means you've done a poor job of creating the poll. And so I'll take responsibility for that. But this time it was really, really close, like literally 3 options separated by like a handful of votes. So we asked you, what was your take on backwards compatibility? And we gave you 4 options. Essential, basically meaning like this is a deal breaker for me if a console doesn't have it. It's nice to have, and it may tip the scales for me. I probably won't use it, but I'm glad that it's there. And then the last option was no value whatsoever. The first 3 options were within 4 percentage points of each other. What one was, I probably won't use it, but I'm glad it's there with 32% of the vote. Next was, it's essential, meaning that it will absolutely sway which console you buy at 31%. Next was, it's nice to have, and it may tip the scales for me at 28%. Again, all 3 of these very close together. And then way at the bottom, no value for me whatsoever with 9 percentage points. Are you surprised at all by those results, Matt?
No, that sounds about what I would expect. I voted for the second one. What was it?
Nice, but
nice to have, but may tip the scale. Yeah, because like it's more important to me than the third option, but it is not essential to me.
Yeah.
Outside of like carrying the digital library forward, which I consider to be a little different thing than keeping the digital library from previous generation intact is different from like what Xbox is doing with like everything going back to the original Xbox. That's a whole different idea. I think
like there's been a big shift, Matt.
I think people have become more interested in carrying stuff forward, and also like the fact that it makes them better is new. Like the fact that you can put last gen games in or older games like original Xbox stuff and they run better than if you just played them on the old system is a plus. If you have any interest in playing Crimson Skies again, you should play it on Xbox One because it runs better and looks better. Like it's that simple. So I think there's a benefit to it that wasn't really there before. Certainly, I don't remember. I mean, I know there was like little like enhancements you could do on like certain like PS1 games when you played them on PS2, and so like I think Vagrant Story had like a PS2 mode that like made the textures a little better or something. But this thing where you just stick your old disc in and whether it's supported or not, it just runs better is great. So I think that's a more attractive option than just you can play the same game you already played before.
Yep. And you're right. The sands have shifted to a place where backwards compatibility is much more user-friendly and I believe much more viable, much more comprehensive. And I agree with you. I think that has kind of shifted perspective because if you go back to the beginning of Generation 8, backwards compatibility was hardly something we even mentioned. And now it's a big, big topic. And I did pull a couple comments from you guys from the poll of the week. I'm going to read them here. Thanks. A lot of you guys wrote great comments. I can't read them all, so I tried to pick the 4 that really caught my eye, but also kind of represented the 4 different options in the poll. The first comment comes from Slagathor. He writes, for a few console generations now, I felt that I needed backwards compatibility, but inevitably the games from the previous generation would fall by the wayside. That's kind of how I feel. So hard that I can't even get excited for it anymore. However, if the old game is somehow improved in a noticeable way for the new console, like you said, I might be more inclined to play it again. Great comment from Slagathor. Next, from Zet Saber. I keep my older consoles, so backwards compatibility is not important to me. It's convenient, but I don't have sudden urges to play old games. Fair perspective. Next, Nightmare 452. I feel it's an essential part of next gen for me. I went all digital this gen, and I 100% expect my library to move forward. So yeah, this would have been a system seller, or more accurately, a system no-no if either Sony or Microsoft didn't offer full comprehensive backwards compatibility. And then the last comment comes from Asmodiar. I've never bought an Xbox before, but I'm giving it all due consideration this generation. Rebuying games is a big cost, and a lack of backwards compatibility is a hint to your treatment moving forwards as a customer. So it's definitely a weight on the scales of who gets my money this generation. I think between those 4, they pretty much covered all the bases.
I don't think you would have seen that last comment before this gen.
Nope. I mean, that's when I saw that, I was like, oh, this one's going in. Because this is someone who is saying like, hey, I never even would consider an Xbox before, but now it's on the table. So it is shifting perspectives without a doubt. So thanks to everybody who participated in the poll of the week. The new one is up right now. And again, it's in the header at sifted.net. And the poll of the week this week is, what is the most important feature for a console? And there are like 5 options there. So when the show's over, head on over there, make your voice heard. And again, leave comments and we'll pluck out the best ones and we'll read them here live on the show. And with that,
my stupid thing for the backwards compatibility is I hope Wrath Unleashed works on the new Xbox. Because Wrath Unleashed, for those who don't know, was a LucasArts game that was like a turn-based strategy game, but when you fought like a fighting game between 2 monsters. And the problem with it was the load times were insane. Like the load times between battles and to get out of the battle back to the board map and everything was like 1.5 minutes. Like you were just sitting there at a load screen. So if like you could do backwards compatibility and just sort of automatically make it load way faster, I would maybe enjoy playing that for once.
Okay, fair enough. And with that, it's time for a word from our sponsor.
That's why I'm going to buy a $700 game console.
Ready to get away from it all without losing all the comforts of home? DeShazer Ryan Realty has a once-in-a-lifetime 200-acre estate for sale in Libby, Montana that gives new meaning to the phrase roughing it. This eye-popping main lake house on this sprawling estate has 4 bedrooms and bathrooms, phone, and internet. There are also separate guest and caretaker houses. It's the first time this property has ever been for sale, so don't let the chance to buy a slice of outdoor heaven pass by. It can be yours for $3.4 million. If you're interested, no matter where you live, contact Doug DeShazer at 406-291-1643 or deshazermt@gmail.com. He can also connect you with local realtors who can help you with your specific needs. If you want to see more, head on over to www.snowshoeranchmt.com. That's snowshoeranchmt.com.
Man, I was so relaxed. I just wanted to pull out my Switch and, play some Paper Mario while I was listening to that because it was just so relaxing. So,
not at all a canned segue into our first topic of episode 221, which is Paper Mario, the Origami King for Switch. Matt, have you been able to spend some time with this?
Yeah, I've got through. I'm on the second streamer.
Okay.
Which makes more sense if you've played it.
Yep. So you've had a boss fight.
Had a couple boss fights, yeah.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, Paper Mario, the Origami King, you may suspect that it's the next entry in the Super Mario RPG franchise, but unfortunately, it's much more of kind of an action-adventure type game with turn-based battles, kind of like Color Splash, which was the last one that came out. I think a lot of people were disappointed to learn that the game isn't kind of a strict RPG. I think what a lot of people miss from those Super Mario RPGs is the number of characters that were in those. Like in these games, you get like the 3 or 4 most basic Mushroom Kingdom enemies, and you just fight them like over and over and over again. There's just not as much variety. But I would also argue that in these games, there's not near as much combat as there was in the older RPG games. It's almost like the developers know that the combat kind of wears thin in these games, and so there is not as prevalent as it used to be. Now, with that said, the battle system in this game is actually quite revolutionary, literally revolutionary. How it works is you're basically in the center of a turntable, and then there are rings that emanate out from the center, and the enemies are placed on the rings. And then it's your job to basically rotate the rings so that you can line up as many enemies as you can in a row, so you can attack as many as you can at once on each turn. And then more mechanics start getting added later. Like there's an ability to like basically select like an inline columns and then shift the enemies along the columns to line them up that way. It's really almost like a puzzle game more than like a physical combat.
Yeah, and I mean, they even call it puzzles. You get a bonus for solving the puzzle after the battle. It's an interesting idea. The fact that they put a timer on it ruins it.
Yeah, I
agree on that.
It's
a
terrible
horrible decision. I don't understand it.
Terrible. Like, and it's so weird because the rest of the game is so pleasant and relaxing and
it really
fun
is.
And lighthearted. And then you get to these fucking like random battles, and it's like, I don't know what you want me to do, game. You give me 30 seconds to rearrange all this stuff, and you're at this weird angle, like kind of this 45-degree angle, so you can't fully... Like, if you give me a top-down view, I could fit this together way easier.
Yeah,
but like sometimes the things are just kind of off on the planes, and there's like 17 enemies, and I'm just like, I don't know.
You're trying to do it fast, and because of the perspective, sometimes it's hard to really switch to the exact ring you're trying to switch to get to that enemy that you need to slide around to line up.
And there's like, you can like pay coins to like extend the time and stuff like this way. Yeah. But it's like, what would be better is if there just wasn't like
any time.
Either have me solve the puzzle or like make it simpler. Like it was really annoying. It was funny because early on I was like, it took me like an hour to even let an enemy attack me. And like early on, I'm like, this doesn't seem so hard. And then you're like,
it's so easy.
I get it. I see what you start to do now.
That's the other thing. The difficulty curve in this game is so out of whack. Yeah. The first couple hours of this game literally are made for like 5-year-olds.
Yeah. And it's like, the ramp is so weird because like, because it's not just like, suddenly you got to solve the problem. If you don't solve the puzzle, basically, if you don't solve the puzzle properly, the enemies get to attack you.
Yeah.
And even like a basic like enemy like hurts.
It'll kill you.
It'll take half your fucking life off, even if you're blocking properly. Like it's nuts. Like and the bosses are even just like, you didn't figure out the trick of the boss.
Let's talk about the boss fights. Like so the boss fights, the roles are reversed, and the boss is in the center, and then Mario is on the outside, and it's your job to navigate all the panels that have like these things on them, tell you which way they're going to send you, and basically get to a point to where you're like right up next to the boss where then you can attack. I don't know if this happened to you, Matt. Did you end up in a spot where they're like, no, that's the wrong spot? That ever happened to you?
I mean,
well, so there's several spots around the boss, and sometimes if you get on one, it won't let you attack the boss, even though you're right next to the boss. There has been nothing more infuriating.
Well, yeah, like on if you're not near the weak point of the first boss, like you can't attack him.
Yeah.
And that's because you also have to rotate the ring to put the attack square or circle
where it needs to be.
So not only do you need to arrow yourself so you end up next to the boss, but you have to end up on an attack circle that lets you attack. Then otherwise you just fall over and you don't get to do anything that turn. Yeah. And the first boss, they like give you some outs on that. If you do it, they're like, oh, that's not how it works. Try it again, kind of thing. But if you do it in the bosses after that, it's like, nope, the boss just gets a free hit on you. And like the air, it's full of like arrows everywhere, bonus stuff, coins everywhere, hearts to get you more life. Like there's all these things, and then like the second boss like has all these like targeting things all over it, because if you walk across that, you'll get hit by missiles. And it
reminds me a little bit of the final boss fight in, was it Banjo-Kazooie or Tooie, where the quiz show happened at the end? Was it Tooie?
I want to say that was the first. Was that the first?
Was it the first one? I think it was. Yeah.
Because like her sister tells you all those trivia things, and at the end you have to get all the trivia questions right.
Yeah.
That's the first
one.
You
follow them throughout the whole game, and you're expected to remember them at the end of the game.
And it's just like my whole thing was like I was playing it. I'm like, who is this for? Like,
I know.
Is this for kids? Because this is real hard. Are our kids just way better at this?
It's like they expect them to just play the first 2 hours and quit because
I don't.
They will.
And other than that, I really like it. Like I really like playing it. It's funny. Like I enjoy the characters. I like the cross up between the 3D origami stuff and the flat Paper Mario stuff. Like it's beautiful. Like it looks great. Like I really enjoy playing this game until I got to fight something. And now I'm just sort of like, this is really punishing in a way that I don't understand.
I never dreamed this game would be that. I'm right there. Why
it's like that. It's like if that, what was that the Yoshi's Woolly World?
Yeah.
It's like if that game just started with like the post game.
Right.
it's like, you thought this was a motherfucking game? Like we're gonna kill your fucking dinosaur over and over again. Like, it's not like a simple like, just try the turnover. It's like you die, you go back to the save point, and you do that boss battle all over again.
Yeah.
It's not
frustrating. The other thing too is that there's no easy way to fix it because you can. It would take a lot of work because if you remove the 30-second timer, then that whole other system that you were talking about. So I'll expand on it a little bit. There's a system in the game where you find toads hidden everywhere. And as you save them, they become a part of the crowd during battles. And when you're in a battle, you can give the toads coins to cheer you on and basically help you in the battle. So if you don't have the 30-second timer, you don't need the coins and you don't need the toads.
But the toads are very entertaining, so they should stay there. Because they talk. You can see word balloons in the background and they cheer you on and react to what's happening, which is, to me, enough entertainment value without having to call them in for whatever.
Well, one thing I would say,
the other thing
this game is very funny and clever in general.
The Paper Marios are always very
great.
Funny. Yeah, the Paper Marios have always been very funny and clever and kind of like, they're the most self-aware of any Mario game.
There's all kinds of like weird like callbacks to like old stuff, or like you said, self-referential, where they recognize that certain things that fans say about the games, and it's really clever. And some of the writing is just great.
The other thing that's weird about the combat system to me is like, so like you said, 30-second time. It's not always 30 seconds. Sometimes it's 60. They know how much this cut, and sometimes and you will get like you don't have a set number of attacks per turn assigned to Mario himself. You have the number of attacks that you need to defeat all the enemies if you do the puzzle perfectly.
Right.
So even that doesn't feel very consistent to me. I'm like, okay, so like it all feels like weirdly arbitrary, and like the enemy is not really the enemy so much as the timer. Like the timer is the most deadly enemy in the game. So I'm hoping that the last boss is a clock. I just don't.
It's almost as if like you basically. You should just fail if you don't complete the puzzle. Is the way like the game is formulated. Which I'm only 2 hours in, so like I have not as far as you guys, and like I haven't touched a boss battle. So to hear it gets a little harder is nice because
the first what you played so far is
easy. Super simple.
But it is really nice. I do like the charm it has. Like there's already 2 moments where I'm like, wow, like this is cool. I did not expect this kind of flair from a game like this.
Yeah, the early stuff is good, but and when it first gets harder, I was kind of like, oh, good, because this was a little brain dead to me for early on. And then like by the second boss, I'm just like, okay, this is over the top. And honestly, it's not that hard to like piece this stuff, but like especially on the boss battles where you're trying to line all the arrows up with you only have a certain number of moves you can make on the rings. And you're throwing a 60-second timer at me, like bite me. Like I don't know what. And
you only have so many attacks on that turn as well.
And if you mess up, like the boss will attack back, and you lose like a ton of life. And you have like 70 hit points at this point, and I'm losing. Even if I block everything all at once, it's 10. And then when the special move shows up, and if you screw that up, you're dead. Like that's the end of it.
It just wipes you out.
And it's just like. I mean, I know Mario games can get unforgiving because, like, especially you finish the game and then the real game starts, right?
Yeah.
That's how Mario kind of works these days, and has for a while. But this just feels, I don't know. I think it was US Gamer or Poly? Like somebody called it punishing, and I was like, that's a weird word to use to describe
no one would have ever
a Mario game, especially a Paper Mario game. And now that I've played it for like 5 hours, I'm like, that's the only word I can think of. Like, it really is punishing in a way that feels like. Did I make you mad?
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I'll be honest. Yeah. I'm completely shocked by this game. We actually never even laid down the plot. Not that it matters.
It's just so dissonant from the rest of the game. Like the rest of the game is so charming, and this is just like it's. I don't know. I can't imagine. It's like if Katamari Damacy just like periodically just like insulted your mother. Like it's I'm like, why? Why is that there? Like what? I don't. Or if it read through your iTunes library or something and like insulted your musical taste. I'm like, I don't understand why this is in the game.
Yep. Anyway, the basic plot, and not that it's all that important really, is that the Mushroom Kingdom has been taken over by the Origami King, who, as it turns out, is the brother of your little sidekick who comes along with you. And basically, you're just on a quest to turn the kingdom back to its normal flat 2D look. The plot doesn't carry the game. It doesn't really need to, because as Matt has said, the game is really whimsy. It really brings.
Although it's a little creepy in the sense that like when they fold the characters up to be the origami versions of themselves, like Princess Peach is like a zombie. Like she's not like her.
Well, then some of the toads, they're like I found one that was in a wood pile, and I pulled him out. And he wouldn't go back to normal because he was in the wood pile so long that he was permanently creased, and he like cried, and I was like, "Oh, that's horrible."
Well, that same area has like they're folded in because they get folded into like various things, like and so like you'll find like little bugs and like you hit them with the hammer and they come back to being toads. But there were butterfly one. They're little colored butterflies, and you hit them with the hammer and they turn back into toads. And most of the toads you do that with are upset that they can't fly anymore. And like they hop around sadly trying to fly again. I'm just like, that's horrifying.
There's cool stuff like that in this game.
The basement of the castle, when they transform them into origami, it's like, it looks like almost an old school medieval torture scene of like carrying the person over and like smashing
to the gallows.
When they only show it happen in like shadows. Silhouette, like a shadow. It's like it reminded me. I thought of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where they dip the shoe in the acetate to like dissolve it. Like I was like, oh, that's just a little horror for the
dip.
For the kids game. It's cool. Yeah. Yep. Well, I already said they dipped it, so I didn't want to say dip again.
The other odd thing about this game to me is that I see a lot of influences from other Nintendo games in this game. So there's like a little touch of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. There's a little touch of Luigi's Mansion, because one big element of the game is you collect confetti. You hit trees, the confetti falls down. You hit flowers with a hammer, the confetti comes out. And as you collect it, you then use it to restore parts of the world. So you come across a hole in the ground and you have to like throw confetti, and it'll cover it up, and you can go over it. A lot of times it'll send out coins that you can collect. That ties into the system we were talking about earlier with the toads.
It's like the reverse of Mario Sunshine, where you spray water to clean things off, and this you're throwing stuff on it to fill it in.
Yeah, and then so this like a little bit like Sunshine, and then the way you suck up all the confetti is very much like Luigi's Mansion. And the weird part is that this is not even an in-house Nintendo game. I believe this was made by Intelligent Systems, which technically is a Nintendo studio, but it's not really one of its big first-party studios. Yet you're still seeing a lot of elements from other Mario games and other just Nintendo games in general in this one. I thought that was pretty cool. But there's a lot of puzzle solving in the game, a lot of go here and do this to get that to come back here to use that on this that opens up a new doorway that you walk through. It's a lot of adventuring, environmental puzzling, stuff like that. And that part of the game, I really, really like. I really love it. Like, if they had got the combat to a good place, I would really, really recommend this game to just about anyone. But man, at first I was like, wow, this is way better than I thought it was going to be. And then once I got to right around where you are, the 4 or 5 hour mark, I had gotten through a couple bosses. I was like, oh man, like the target audience for this game, I just don't see them being able to play this game after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, or you're just sort of muddling through the battles and hoping you don't get hit too much.
Or getting lucky and...
Yeah. And like, because there's some clever solutions to some of the puzzles, but like a couple times I'm just like, it's going to take me more than 20 seconds to do that, guy. In part because the interface, like the interface is not amazing. And because like you got to scroll through the rings and stuff. And then like the bosses are even weirder because the boss sometimes won't let you. It doesn't let you scroll the other way. Like you can only go out to the edge of the ring and then start over and continually scroll outward. Like you can't scroll back if you missed the ring you wanted. So you're wasting even more time doing that. There's a couple times when I've rotated over, and because time is of the essence, I'm tapping the stick to go rotate. I hit the button that somehow didn't rotate as far as I wanted, and so I hit the wrong thing. There's no undo. Yeah. It's just I find it like oddly frustrating in a way the rest of the game isn't, and it kind of ruins a lot of it.
It does. Like can you recommend people buy this, Matt?
No, like I don't.
It's hard to
like if you love Mario stuff, I guess, but like you better be ready. Like it's hard in a way that Mario is usually a test of reflexes and platforming skill. This is a test of like speed,
cognitive
puzzle
ability.
solving from a really inconvenient angle. And like it's like if you took the timer off it, like I'd be fine with it. Like,
I would love it. But again, I don't think that they can just like, if people get really angry over it, I don't think they can just take it out and like fix it that easily without screwing up other stuff.
I think I would just change the Toad thing to like because there's charms that up the timer on it too. Like I have those on it, and it helps a little bit, but it's just like, sometimes you got to look at something and figure it out. Sometimes it's very unforgiving on that.
Like I enjoy when there's a puzzle, taking that moment to observe it, kind of take it in, then start fiddling around with it. It's a thing that I do when I solve puzzles in games or pretty much anywhere else in life, and this game doesn't allow you to do it.
I'm guessing the only reason like they do that to like put the timer on there justifying it is because they do come onto the field lined up and then they hop out of place. So it's almost like you have to, part of the puzzle is to observe them to figure out where they hopped so you can just readjust it. I think if they didn't have it that way, I think getting rid of the timer I think they might say that would be why.
You should get further in the game.
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't matter later. Okay. Like because like it doesn't matter how they jump out of space, because sometimes like they come in like two single file lines and they'll jump out of space, but the solution is actually to move them into the hammer shape instead of you're not always trying to put them back in the shape they were in.
The turntables also start to get crazy after a while. Like there's no way you could watch that and like know like, okay, I saw them come in and then disperse and that's going to help me solve it. Like it's just too much to keep track of. And again, there's 30 seconds, a minute maybe.
And like I could see that as being intentional. Like you're not going to be able to solve all these perfectly. But then why do you lose half your damn life if you screw even when you block everything? Like it's just like punishing is the only word I can think of. If you're ready for that, then the rest of the game is very good. And the combat system is actually really interesting. I just don't like being timed on it. That's all.
I like everything about it except for the timing. But that timer, in all honesty, makes it not that much fun to play. Now, again, combat is not that prevalent in the game. It's not like you're just going from one battle to another. Like you have a battle, 5-7 minutes later, you'll have another one.
Yeah, it's not constant. You don't level up from that. It's not like you have to grind it.
There are no levels in this game at all, actually.
Well, the HP max, the heart plus things.
You collect hearts.
They make you more powerful. So they don't just give you more hit points. That makes you more powerful. So you can, like after that, you can then just hammer like enemies in the overworld, and you don't have to fight them. You just defeat them.
Yeah, true.
So that's like that's the upgrade system really, as far as it goes.
You can also hammer enemies in the overworld to get first strike in the battle. Yeah. So when you go to the turntable, there will be a little scene where you actually hit them with the hammer right before the battle starts.
Which is pretty classic Paper Mario RPG stuff. So I also miss the fact, I also prefer, I think, the Mario RPGs where you play more than just Mario.
Yeah.
And like,
I mean, Luigi's here, but
he's off doing something else. And like Bowser is around briefly, but then he goes to do something else. And Bowser's actually very funny in this.
I think everything's funny. The writing's really great. I also like seeing Bowser and Mario team up. Like, that's the thing that I like about the plot, even though it's like whatever, it's paper thin. Haha. But that's what I like about it, is that it's all the people and characters from the Mushroom Kingdom against the Origami King. And it's pretty rare to see all those characters unite for a single cause. And just the play between that is the Goombas run in like, oh, I guess we're like allies now. Like it's something out of the ordinary, which I think is kind of cool.
I also like there's like little things that make me like it's stick in my head, like maybe they're not intentional, but like when the very beginning of the game, Mario and Luigi drive up the castle in their Mario Kart go-kart. And Luigi drops Mario off and says, like, I'm going to go park the cart because I don't want to tip the valet. And I'm like,
yeah.
Really? Like, you don't want
stuff like that all through the game.
Is there a tipping system in the Mushroom Kingdom? Is Luigi just that cheap? Like, surely at this point, Mario and Luigi are rolling in coins. Like there's no. And then you come back and it's
broke when you start the game. So,
but then you come back later and the car's like 4 feet away. So you're like, well, no wonder he didn't want to tip him if he's just driving it that far. You know?
But it's like art style's great. Like,
it was just this little insight there.
Like even the tailpipes on the cart, like they're curled almost like a scroll. Like they're not a perfect circle. It's like a scroll with like one piece like overlapping. Like they just carry the origami / paper thing out to the nth degree, and in a lot of times very clever ways. So
all the origami in it, as far as I know, is actually real. Like you could make those.
You could fold those.
Yeah,
interesting. Like there are some cinematics where they actually show them.
Them folding it. Yeah. So as far I remember, I saw an interview or I read something, I think, where they basically said like, all the origami in it is real.
That's awesome.
That if you gave them instructions, you could actually fold the enemies.
You could make a Princess Peach.
You could.
There's an actual sifter that I know that's done that. So he's been folding the Paper Mario characters. It's actually Raphael from who got his question answered from Pactor just yesterday.
Okay.
So
cool.
He's been doing that.
Yeah, it's not. Look, I want to recommend this game. I really do, because I have enjoyed some parts of it a great deal. But I would say definitely do not buy it for your kids. They'll be pacified for a couple hours and then they'll come to you and be like, what the F? And I would only, as an adult, I would only recommend it to other adults if you're ready for a stiff challenge. I mean, it is a tough game. I know you probably wouldn't have guessed that looking at this game, but it is challenging. And so if you're ready for a stiff challenge, it's probably going to make you frustrated on several fronts. And as you get really into the boss battles, they get to the point where, like, right now, I'm at a boss battle and I quit. For instance.
Same. And I'm on my third boss battle and I lost for like the second time and I just turned it off.
Yep, that's how it's been working for me. And then I would just go back to the other game we're going to talk about today, which is Ghost of Tsushima, which has been very weird jumping between those two games for the last few days.
Yeah, those are you couldn't really pick two more different games to come out on the same day, really.
It was a weird weekend, to say the least. So I would not recommend purchasing this. I do think probably the reviews are pretty accurate. It's probably a 7 to an 8, somewhere around there.
I worry that I feel like there's going to hit a point in this game where I just can't get through it.
Or I keep wondering if there's going to be this moment where I brain meld with it and it just all of a sudden it clicks and I can just start doing it. It hasn't happened yet, though. I keep waiting and it just never happens. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like there's a specific house in the Toad Town where you can go practice everything.
Yeah, and
I did that for a bit, but it's like that doesn't help you when it's like you get hit with a configuration out of the gate that like is just like, what the hell? Like I don't, okay, I don't know what you want. A couple times I've actually yelled at the screen, I don't know what you want me to do. Like it's it's just, and then you run out of time and Mario gets his ass beat. That's the end of it. It's like what are you gonna do?
Yep. But look, I think we prepared you guys well enough to decide whether you want to buy it or not. If you've been sitting on the fence the last couple of days, you know what you're getting into at this point. Don't say we didn't warn you, though, if you take the plunge, because it is not what you expect. I guess that's the best way I could put it.
Yeah. I mean, like there's a world in which, or there's a game where there's like the timer on the system makes sense. But I don't feel like you have the tools to do this as easily as you should. Like it really needs a top-down view at the very least. I feel like big part of my timer problems come from trying to figure out like at the angle you're at, like where things are and where they've lined up, especially like in a hurry. You know, it's like because it's like one or the other.
You're under stress. You're trying to do it fast and. Yeah, I totally get it.
Do you think I was just going to say, do you think an ability, like if they gave, and I don't know if it's an option because I'm not as far as you guys, so I'm interested in texting you guys later once I get farther to go, like this is frustrating or something, but.
And I'll just text back, good luck.
But my question would be, do you think like if they gave you a temporary power-up that you could use so many times that would slow down the timer, that might help with your frustration?
I mean, you can extend the timer using the coins. It's just, I don't like using a finite resource to extend the timer on random battles just feels like, I don't know why that's the thing. Like, it feels like you should just give me enough time to do this.
Would you just be doing it too often then?
Maybe. I don't think you should have a timer on it, period. I don't think you should. Either you have me solve puzzles or you have me do something on a timer, but don't make me do both. Like, I'll say this
too, like where you're at, Mitch, right now, you're like, oh my God, I have so many coins. And I was like that when I first started the game.
I'm collecting too many.
I'm like, I have like 20,000 coins. Like, what am I supposed to do with them? And let me just tell you, those coins those coins go real fast when the game starts to show its teeth. So don't frivolously give up any coins anywhere. Fight through the early battles. Don't spend coins on Toads early on because you're going to need them later on. I'm at the point now where it's like really hard to decide how I want to spend my coins and whether I want to use them in battle or whether I want to use them to get items. It starts as the game heats up, it starts to become another puzzle that you have to solve.
And that might be the intent, but I don't find that to be a compelling choice to make.
Me either.
I'd rather just play the game.
So Mitch, your final take, would you recommend it?
I can't. With what you guys said, there's no way I can like say anything about this because I'm not too fresh in it. Probably ask me next week and I'll give you my take.
All right, sounds good. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about some controversy. This one kind of came out of nowhere for me. I was pretty surprised by this. But I also would say at this point, with the way the internet is, I probably shouldn't be surprised at any controversy because there's like 100 of them every day now, it seems like. But this week, a brand new FMV-driven game called Gamer Girl was announced by Wales Interactive. It's being made by an indie studio called FMV Future that specializes in FMV games.
Yeah, I was going to say, they really locked themselves into it.
They really did. Not a lot of room for spreading your legs, and that's the name of your studio. But anyway, this is an FMV-driven game, and it follows a female streamer. And you actually play as the moderator of her streams. And she's being stalked by a psycho fan. And you try to aid her in her, I don't even know how you would word it. You try to help her basically not fall victim to the stalker. And I thought the game, when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is an interesting take. I've never seen a game that really tackles this before. I had no idea that it was going to explode in the next 2 hours, and that's exactly what happened. A lot of people became upset that the female streamer would need to be aided by the player. Basically, like white knighting they're calling it like a white knight simulation, a simp simulation, which is a term I just learned this week.
Simp was my favorite description of it.
I never heard that word until this week. Simp. I had to actually like Google it in the Urban Dictionary. So and then it exploded. Then a lot of female streamers started chiming in and saying, oh, this is disgusting. And, I will never buy another game from Wales Interactive because of this.
Yeah, my Wales Interactive library is really going to take a hit from this.
My guess is they could not name a single other game that Wales Interactive has published.
I can't.
I definitely can, but I can understand why most people can't. So Matt, is this is this a big ado about nothing, or do you think that these people have legitimate gripes about this game? Now, to me, I would say they they took everything down. Like, they took down the trailer, they took down all the assets off of their official press sites.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway is like, I am very impressed at how thoroughly they were able to scrub everything out. Like, immediately, I mean, less than 24 hours later, it's all gone. Like, oh, we're reworking it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, you can still see it on mirrors and it's still around. But
it's on YouTube. We have it up on our site if you want to check it out.
It was fascinating. I think they have a point. I think it's the concept is interesting. The subject matter is something worth tackling, but they went about it backwards.
The trailer's terrible is the problem.
Trailer's not great, but also like it's the premise of because for one thing, the stalking problems in streaming like that, a lot of times they come from moderators who get too personal and too familiar.
Oh, interesting.
So having the moderator be the person who's sort of like getting in with the girl like that is
could that be the twist to the game story?
No, I don't know if it goes that
you end
far,
up being the stalker.
That's also. I mean, maybe that would be a hard turn.
That would be
because everything's supposed to be you viewing it live, but
right.
and like her constantly turning for advice to you is weird. Like that's, if you just played as her somehow, like, and made decisions as her, like that would probably work better. I think it was a couple of people. I think I can't remember who said it. Maybe it was just a comment somewhere, but it was basically the fetishization of like the moderator kind of playing control with her life that way is not the way to approach this. Does it require like pulling the whole thing down? That I'm a little surprised they did that. Like I thought when the controversy started that they would just sort of be like, they'd put out some statement, or like they'd say like, we're sensitive to this sort of thing. Yeah, but I just didn't expect that they were going to like pull the whole. I mean, just I guess those statements didn't work. There is also a point to be made that the entire dev team is pretty much dudes. And the girl in the
let's
game
be fair to Wales Interactive here. We need to share their.
The girl in the game apparently is listed as a co-writer, but like it's...
Well, the whole thing was improv apparently by her. She and the writer would write up a loose idea of what was supposed to happen, and then she would just act it out. The other thing, too, is that Wales Interactive issued several statements right in a row. And basically its perspective was that it's trying to help with the problem with this game. But the problem is that the trailer doesn't portray that at all. It is that's to me is the problem. I don't know.
It's about 2 steps away from Night Trap.
Right. Like, I don't know if Wales Interactive is just revising history now that it's found itself in controversy, and now they're going to revise the game so it is about addressing these problems. But that's what Wales Interactive said, that it was supposed to be about that. The trailer does not portray that at all. The trailer is her with like low-cut shirts on for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like,
that's the other thing is like, especially the most revealing outfits seem to be reserved for when she's just talking to the moderator. Like it looks like those are not when she's on stream. She's just talking to you, and so there's a little bit of on that.
Well, she's wearing like lingerie and like it's
and
like
there's
trying
literally
to
a
help
shot
women.
of her leaning forward, and
you
could almost see down her shirt. And it's
it just seems like maybe you should.
Too much.
It seems like maybe you might want to have consulted a couple of streamers who had to deal with this problem at some point.
They said they did. They said they researched for 4 years and interviewed 15 streamers who had all experienced harassment through streaming.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did that. But what I'm saying is like, did you run the concept of the actual game by these people?
Or
like,
did you show them the trailer?
Interviewing them for like as like research to write the game is one thing. Showing them what you've done and saying, hey, what do you think about our approach to this is a very different thing. Yeah. So I certainly believe they did research in that regard to like find out like, situations and case study kind of things from the people that lived it. But it doesn't sound like they asked them like, hey, do you think this approach is a good idea? Because I think almost universally they would have been told no. Like you need to give the gamer girl of the title the agency to handle the problem. Like that is I think one of the kind of the core thing I've seen from the more reasonable most of the people I've seen that I follow anyway, or that I like feel the need to listen to or know in real life, like didn't call it like, oh my God, it's repulsive trash, but it's just like, this is not the way to do this.
Yeah,
like,
you didn't really hit it on the nose. Yeah. I struggled honestly with this topic over the last couple of days, trying to figure out what my perspective is on it, because I don't want anyone to think that they shouldn't ask for help And so the kind of the perspective I'm seeing from this is like, I don't need your help. It's like, but I want to help you. I want to help everybody I can in my life if it's possible. And people saying that like it's offensive that someone would try to help them is a little weird. But then you watch the trailer and it's like, to me, that's not what the game is saying anyway through that trailer. So I've been just completely flummoxed by this. And I really don't know where I'm coming down on it still, to be honest with you. But one thing I do know is that trailer's awful. And whatever Wales Interactive says the game is supposed to be about, it was not portrayed in that. And
whatever the game actually is, that trailer is astoundingly tone deaf.
Yes, so, exactly.
Maybe they're just pulling back and like they're going to cut a new trailer and it'll come out better, or they're more effectively communicate like what they're going for. I think the perspective of the game is skewed. Like I think like if you want to make that work better, you needed to make it her doing stuff on her own, playing as the streamer. Like,
and then you just take like consultancy from your mod or whatever, but you're in control. That would be a good way to handle it.
But like to do that, you have to reshoot the whole thing. So
you can't do it. It's not like a game where everything's running in real time. Once you've paid the money to shoot the stuff, that's it. It's in the can. And
so they got to do something with it, but I don't know what they do. Like
really the sad part is like, I'm interested in this game. It's like, I saw the trailer and I was like, that's really gross, but the concept of it intrigues me. I haven't cared about an FMV game in a really long time. So there's something there. Like if they can get it to an intelligent place, it might end up being a decent FMV game. But the way they're handling things right now, boy, really, really bad. Although Wales Interactive, to its credit, I think once the controversy hit, I think it did things pretty well.
I mean, they're going to do what they can, I think. It's just there's only so much you can do, especially because you've already shot everything. And like, even like the end of the trailer where she's running through the ship, for like her ex-boyfriend lives on a ship for some reason.
It's like the only location they could get for free, man.
Right, and it's like it's like you're hitting that kind of same found footage movie problem where you're like, why are you still filming? Like
you think you're gonna die, but
you think I'm gonna die. I'm not holding the camera up anymore. Like I'm just how it is. I'm sorry. Also, you're getting really good stream quality from a boat off the docks.
Yes.
Like their Wi-Fi must be excellent.
But anyway, I'm intrigued by the game and the concept. I think it has an opportunity to be something cool, but it definitely
it's a subject that I think there's room to make statements on.
Yeah, for sure.
Games,
and I think there need to be statements made on it, honestly. There's a lot of women out there that are tortured by people that need this something out there to encourage other people, I think, to support them. And I hope that when that support is coming from a good place, they'll accept it.
But as the kids say, this ain't it, Chief.
Yeah, it's not. So there you go, Gamer Girl. I don't know if we may never see this game again, in all honesty. We did find a mirror of the trailer, and it's up on Sithid if you want to check it out.
I mean, I do feel like it would be better to, maybe rework it, maybe try to get some opinions from current streamers, like of the final game or something. In the end, it's got to be better to like put it out there and be like, see what you guys think. Maybe we screwed it up, but just like we want your feedback and we'll do better next time. Like at least that way you get some money back from sales somehow.
I'd rather see this game come out because I'm curious on what it actually turns out to be. Because the trailer, it's just a trailer. You can adjust a trailer to change a tone to make it what maybe the game isn't. Maybe the game isn't all this. Maybe this is just small snippets of the different narrative that you actually get out of the game. Because I think there is some good elements out of it. There just isn't that, just the over-sexualization in that beginning portion just really threw the tone off completely to the point where it was really weird.
I don't know. So one Supermaster gamer in the chat does bring up a pretty good point. He says, but those streamer girls do exist. They use sexuality to get views.
True.
He's right.
It's true.
Yeah. That is a huge part of streaming, is girls
and they
in low-cut shirts.
Sometimes play dumb, even though they may be very smart people. Like they sometimes play dumb because they are catering to an audience. So having the cleavage and stuff in the trailer, I mean, in all honesty, it is kind of accurate to streamer culture, but they could have chosen a streamer as the main character that isn't one of those streamers.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to make a statement about a serious subject, that you don't need to put that in there. Like you don't need to have that in there as titillation.
Notice the first shot. The first like 2 shots in the trailer are her in like the black negligee bending down. It's the first shot in the whole thing.
Yeah,
so,
it's just, and that might be the choice of the trailer, but like, the trailer is clearly cut to give it a kind of an exploitation film look. It's
fly on the wall type vibe.
So, maybe they could do a trailer that tonally feels a little more like it's treating a serious matter with the gravitas it deserves. But if those are the clips you're working from, I don't know how you get there. They shot what they shot.
They did put a lot of effects on stuff, and so maybe if they go back to the clean footage, they might be able to work with it a little bit. We'll see.
I think that, I don't know. Like, clearly the footage they shot is her, has her asking the moderator directly to do things, or what should she do, and like,
there's no getting around that.
I promise, if like your creepy stalker ex-boyfriend calls you, you don't need to ask your moderator whether you should pick the phone up or not. Like,
it's a fair point to say you would ask a friend, and maybe the moderator. Like, we don't know exactly what the relationship is between the moderator and the character. For all we know, like, it could be your best friend from out of town, or like best friend from another country, and they're just being supportive of you on your stream. Now, that's probably not going to be the case, but there's a potential chance that
that's not what it is, from what I understand. From what I understand, it's supposed to be like an elevated fan. It's a new moderator kind of thing. And because moderators in Twitch streams have become the problem so often, people who have experience with this, that's one of the reasons they're reacting so poorly, is because a lot of times in the real life example of something like this, the moderator would be the stalker. So
not us. Our mods are freaking great.
No, our mods have never. Yeah, well, we also don't bend over as much. So.
They don't want us to bend over.
But there is something to be. There's an interesting element of to be explored in this this situation they're trying to address, where that parasocial relationship that you have with the people you watch on YouTube or Twitch, and you kind of feel like you know them, or like they're they're in your face and in your house all the time because you watch them all the time, and you kind of feel, but they have no idea who the hell you are, and like it can get really weird if you ever meet them at like a signing or something. And here's this person that you think you know all this stuff about, and they don't know who the hell you are from. They don't know you from Adam, as we used to say about Adam's or greeting people.
And I would say not just Twitch. I think that's not really explored much in just any like entertainment industry, basically.
Right,
like the super fan and how far that goes, where someone feels like they have a real connection. I know it's explored in TV shows a lot, but movies or any kind of other medium, it's not really touched.
It's touched a lot. I mean, not in the specific social media realm. I mean, there was a movie called Swim Fan that's literally that. But like because there's always been that parasocial element to like people that are famous or things you watch all the time and that kind of thing. That's part of what stalkers do. But with social media and YouTube and stuff like that, it's become a much more prevalent thing because everything's more casual. Things are not as like dressed up. It's, so many of these things are we're just hanging out. We're hanging, like Twitch streams in particular, just hanging out, quote unquote, hanging out with this other person for like 12 hours. And like that parasocial element becomes more and more prevalent in a way that it wouldn't be if you're just like, say, a fan of like Harrison Ford and want to meet him. Like it's a different intensity level, I guess would be the way I'd say it. And there's room to explore that idea in a game. I don't know if this is the game, but it is an ongoing thing, and it's a social phenomenon that I think has precedent, but it doesn't have an equivalent outside of this new streamer YouTube culture. So, and I think the people to make that piece of art that addresses that might be too young to do it yet. Maybe because I think you're looking for people who grew up in this, who have been immersed in it for as long as they can remember, and those people are probably still 15.
Yeah, max 15. So there you go, Gamer Girl. Who knows if we'll ever see it, but it sure did create a really good conversation for GameFace, and that way it has served its purpose. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about the Nintendo Direct Mini that happened yesterday. I think Mini was I'm glad that they used that moniker.
Mini is definitely the word. I didn't even know this happened until that last night. I was like, wait, what? Why are people talking about Shin Megami Tensei? What?
Well, it went up really early in the morning yesterday, so
I just completely missed it. I was up early yesterday morning. I just did not see this happen.
There's so many of these things happening now, Matt. There's just no way to keep track of them all. And that is
I figured I'd just know what I figured Nintendo would say something. I just didn't see any of the announcements.
They do a great job about setting expectations. Like they call a thing Nindies, and so you always know like what you're going to get out of it. And so like they knew it was going to be mini, and it was mini for sure.
I'll be honest, I'm checking out from a lot of these now. It's I don't need to be there when they go live. Like, we have Sifted. Stuff's going to be there. And if I really care about it, it's going to be at the top of my Sift and I'll see it. So,
yeah, I mean, I certainly wasn't upset I didn't see this as it happened.
Yeah. But anyway, it was a direct mini, but they did end up sharing, I don't know, some moderately important news. A game that was announced when the Switch was announced that disappeared for the last several years was finally re-unveiled, if that's even a word.
I guess 4 years later.
Shin Megami Tensei 5. We got the second trailer for that like 4 years later. And it's not ready. It's still not coming until 2021. And they don't even have like a quarter for 2021. It's just coming sometime. And then the trailer is literally, I think after I chopped off the head and tail, it was like 49 seconds. So
57, you're close.
57. So if you look at 4 years, we now have a grand total of about 1 minute and 10 seconds of Shin Megami Tensei 5. I still really have no freaking idea what's going on in it. Obviously,
I do. It's Shin Megami Tensei. It's going to be the same damn game. It's just, there's an apocalypse. It's like the difference between that and Persona. It's like Persona is a high school simulator where you're solving people's traumas and mental problems by beating sexy versions of themselves up in their brains. Yeah. And Shin Megami Tensei is an apocalyptic thing where you have to gather an army of demons to fight Satan. Like those are basically what's happening in those two different series. The main thing that
for a second I thought you paused. That's hilarious. Because when you stopped, Matt, your face froze. Like you did not move. I thought your stream had stalled. That was hilarious.
I thought he paused. I literally thought he was done talking. He was like holding a pause for a second.
I thought his Zoom just totally froze up. Anyway, go ahead, Matt.
The thing that struck me was watching that trailer and thinking like, I remember when you couldn't put a cross in a Nintendo game.
Oh, yeah.
When you couldn't reference religion in a Nintendo game. And this one just starts with a giant Satan demon thing going, your God is dead. And
that's the first line.
We are in another era, I guess.
I mean, look, you've seen all the stuff going up on the eShop. Nintendo has no standards for that stuff anymore. It really does not care anymore at all. It's done. I don't know if that went away with Iwata, but it just doesn't care. It's like anything. I mean, look, it's putting games like Scorn and like these crazy AO only games. Yeah. It's like, it just, the gloves are off.
There is a lot of...
Okay, that time he did freeze, I believe.
Anime boobs on that eShop. I mean, you froze too.
Oh, so the whole call just froze.
No, it was just Matt.
Oh, Sorry, was just Matt. It froze for you, Kyle. There's something going on with your connection. This franchise has been gone for a long time. Is there still an audience for it?
Probably. I mean, it's pretty much the same people like Persona. And honestly, if you've never played one, but you do like Pokemon, you'd probably like it. The Shin Megami Tensei
critters, basically.
Yeah, the Shin Megami Tensei, the main series is much more about like collecting and raising and breeding and min-maxing the demons, the personas. Whereas like the Persona games are more story driven. Like Nocturne is basically a giant dungeon crawl where you just have to build up an army. They're more straight dungeon crawls usually.
Nice
whereas the Persona games are straight up like they're more traditional JRPGs, I'd say.
Well, before you hop off of it, Shane, because I'm just as a person that's a little younger that I've never experienced Shin Megami Tensei, and I've only heard of it because of Persona 5. And I played a little bit of Persona 4. And so I think there's a really good opportunity here for Shin Megami Tensei because of the success of Persona 5 and how much more recognition it has as just to more general audience of gamers compared to the really hardcore Japanese audience. So I think it does have an opportunity to break out just like Persona 5 did.
And that's not all. Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne is being remade for Switch and PlayStation 4. A classic from what year was it? What year was that?
That was PS2.
2003.
So I'm going to say it was. I think that was 02, 03.
Around there.
03, 04.
Yeah.
In there.
So this game. So what we're getting at is this game will absolutely benefit from a remake.
It says it on the trailer.
What year?
2003. It says it on the trailer.
Okay. This game will absolutely benefit from, and it looks like it's a remake and not a remaster, though it doesn't.
I think it would have to be. Yeah.
But if you watch the trailer, it doesn't look like a complete
Well, it's sort of like it's sort of like the Steam version of Persona 4 Golden that went up. It's like it clearly was a Vita game, but they did redo a lot lot of it. It's just they didn't redo it.
That's what it looks like this is going to be.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, this is Nocturne's probably the best game in the series, so that's a good call. It is so story light that it might as well not be there. Like it's almost like, the world ended. You need to gather demons. Come back in 70 hours. We might have an ending for you. Like it's pretty much what happens. Yeah. And Dante's in there somewhere. Like that's from Devil May Cry. He's in there.
Yep. But it is heralded as one of the better RPGs from that generation. So definitely something to keep an eye on. That's coming in the first quarter of 2021, again, for Switch and PS4. And then from there, the interest level drops off a great deal.
Aren't they also doing Persona 3? Did I miss that?
I don't know. I didn't see that, man.
I saw something about Persona 3 recently, like in the last few days. I thought that was part of that.
I didn't see that, but it's possible.
That would be cool because that's a good one, too.
Yep. Next up, Cadence of Hyrule DLC, an indie game with, the Zelda license that's been out for quite a while, is getting DLC, and it is a big, big, beefy chunk of DLC. For those of you guys who don't remember, it's an RPG where you have to attack and move to the beat of the music. It was basically the spiritual successor to Crypt of the Necrodancer, if any of you have played that, with a Zelda paint job, obviously. And there's a bunch of DLC coming to that, and it is pretty robust, and I was pretty impressed with the expansion to that game. I never did finish that game, now that I think about it. I got to a certain point where I got frustrated and I couldn't figure out where to go, and I quit. Because in that world, the map was like really basic. And like watching the map, like you go to like the point that it tells you and there's a wall there and you're like, oh, I have to go somewhere else and find some other way. And I just quit. So maybe this will convince me to get back into it. And then next up is Rogue Company, which is basically a free-to-play shooter from Hi-Rez Studios that's on everything. A Nintendo Direct is probably the only presentation that this game would have made it into. I'll be perfectly honest with you. It's just not, I mean, if you look at the numbers on Sifted for that game, it's doing nothing. The fact that Nintendo decided to put it in a Direct, I think, shows you something that we're going to talk about in just a minute. And then the final game that they showed was WWE Battlegrounds. We'd love to show you that, but every time we run footage of that game in GameFace, we get copyright flags from the WWE. So we can't show it to you, but they did show the Switch version of that arcade-style WWE game. And we got the first look at that, and then that was it. And it was a mini, so you shouldn't expect too much. And Nintendo did say that there are more presentations coming before the end of the year, so we'll get some more of this stuff. But what was your overall takeaway from this, Matt?
Like, we still don't know what the hell they're releasing for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. Like, do you have any games for Q3 and Q4? Because, like, seems like no. I mean, I'm sure they do, but they're just not talking about it yet, and it's weird.
I mean, if you think about it...
Like, it's weird that you show me a Shin Megami Tensei game that I haven't seen for 4 years and then tell me it's coming out next year, and I still don't know what's coming out in October. Like, I don't know what the deal is there.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, what known Switch games are there right now? There's Metroid Prime 4, there's Bayonetta 3...
Breath of the Wild 2.
Breath of the Wild
2, Pikmin 4, maybe.
And the rumored Mario Remastered Collection.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it.
I guess they're banking on their DLC for Pokemon. That's probably what they're trying to bank on.
Yeah.
That would be a huge mistake. You're never going to make enough money to float Q3
on the Pokemon Snap.
Oh, Pokemon Snap. That's right. Yep,
well,
there's
also,
one.
if you're going to announce something, like, seriously, now's the time. I mean, you got Sony revealing their kind of fall and into the future lineup. You got Microsoft in 2 days doing that. Like, this is
maybe that's why maybe that's why they didn't. Maybe they figured wait till August, wait till the new console hype dies down a bit, and
less signal.
Then we'll see something. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe it just felt like such an also ran this thing, and like maybe that was the point. Maybe the point is like, oh, we'll just throw some stuff out there because like if you are interested in any of this stuff, and probably just Cadence of Hyrule and Shin Megami Tensei, but like you're not going to forget about those things. If you care about those things, you're not going to forget about them in the wake of PS5 and Xbox Series X. They're unique properties. But like it was a weird move, I guess, just to try to keep being part of the conversation, in this week of like crazy, big new announcements. I
don't really understand why Nintendo did it now, or why it would do it direct when it had so little to show. To me, I'm hoping that this isn't an inflection point, because I'm starting to think that this might be the point where the Switch goes the way of most prior Nintendo consoles, and in the last couple years of its life, you're just scratching for a game to play.
I don't know. I mean, they've had a fair number of things to play that are exclusive to it the last few months, even if you weren't interested. Look, I'm glad it doesn't run well, and I stopped playing it and waiting for like some updates to like make it run better. But Deadly Premonition 2 is not insignificant to me. Paper Mario is a solid release, and that was announced out of nowhere about a month and a half ago.
Yeah. They does give you hope for Q3 and Q4,
and everything. Yeah, and everything we just listed is all like top level stuff that I definitely want to play. Like I think part of it is determined by what their plans for the successor to the Switch is. Are they doing that sooner, or are they doing it later?
They said recently that they have no interest right now in even thinking about its successor.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's smart. I think that's.
If you're making money like that, why would you?
You can ride this thing for quite a few more years if you want to, even if you put out like a Switch Pro sort of thing to fill the gap.
It's always going to be a handheld. I mean, it's going to remain relevant for a long time, and because it does connect to the internet and you can just download software to it, like. It could remain relevant for a long time.
So, I mean, I'm sure they have stuff. They're just not talking about it right now. And it's a little odd, but I don't know. Like, it's not like I'm not going to buy Breath of the Wild 2 or Metroid Prime 4 if they announce it a month before it comes out.
Oh, yeah,
fall.
Of course. I don't suspect that will happen with those games.
Probably not. But I do still suspect a 2D Metroid from Mercury Steam. Like, it's like they've had two and something years and change. It's time to see something from them.
And they're very cozy with Nintendo. So
I wonder if they were like, they decided to kind of hold off big announcements because Paper Mario just came out and they didn't want to take the limelight from it. Even though like it's not getting rave reviews, it still captures some headlines to like just not overshadow it. Because those announcements to me, like that they made sound like they're big games in a niche group. Like Shin Megami Tensei, like I said, has an opportunity to break out a little more mainstream because of Persona 5, but the rest of those games are very niche. Like, I don't think that any of them are big hitters.
Well, WWE could be, but I don't care about wrestling, but a lot of people do.
Yeah, I don't care about wrestling either.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I mean, Paper Mario is kind of out and it's doing what it's doing already. It's not completely out of character for Nintendo to think that way, to be like, oh, we just gave you Paper Mario, so we don't need to give you anything big just yet. It's the old Reggie thing of like, well, we gave you Animal Crossing. Why are you asking me about games, Jeff Keighley? And it's like, because we want more than that. Like, it's, so I don't know. Like that's they've kind of gotten over that in recent years, but they've been playing coy about the second half of 2020 for a long time now. So I don't know what's going on. I'm sure part of it is just like they're trying to figure out how to position themselves in this fall of new consoles, that they don't have a new console. They need something exciting to pull your attention away from these new machines. And maybe they have it, maybe they don't. But they might just be waiting to see what's ready. Who knows?
Well, the other thing too is that this Direct was supposed to be about third party and partners. And this is what they rolled out. So it appears that maybe Nintendo's output isn't following the same pattern as prior Nintendo platforms, but it's starting to look like third-party support sure is. I mean,
yeah.
But then also you look at it. I mean, you're getting new generation of hardware where Nintendo power-wise and capability technology will never be able to keep up. So
they can't keep up right now.
They can't keep up right now, and
I don't think Nintendo fans care about that at all.
I understand that, but like they're gonna lose more third-party support as we dwindle every single year because of that.
As the gap becomes. I mean, look, these developers right now are basically performing like Wiccan magic tricks to get these games to work on Switch. When they take the next step up, it's going to be tough. A lot of it will depend on how the games are scaled. It'll be interesting to just see if the Switch 2 or whatever it ends up being, if the Switch games work on Switch 2. I would assume that they will. It would be really dumb for them not to. But you know what? Nintendo shocked me many, many times across the years with stuff that I thought was a no-brainer that they refused to do. So who knows? But what I would say is it's not looking good right now. But you're right. Nintendo has kind of fallen into this pattern recently of here's a new game and it's coming out in 2 months. And I would not be surprised at all if that happens with all those Mario 3D platformer remakes. If they're like, they do a direct in August and in November, the collection launches or whatever. And that's what floats them through the holidays through Q4. But I don't know. I'm just my spidey sense is starting to tingle from all the years working in this industry and following Nintendo very closely. There's something in the back of my mind is starting to go off a little bit about what's happening right now with Switch. I hope it's wrong. I hope it's just the devil on my shoulder, like whispering in my ear, and he's wrong.
Which is disappointing because their output has been great for this console compared to past consoles. Like this has been really good output for them.
It's so good that they've run out of IP.
I mean, they
have released a game for every one of their properties for Switch already. I can't, except for Pikmin. I can't really think of any others.
I don't count Mario Kart. I don't count Mario Kart because it's like that was just a remaster.
Oh, deluxe.
Yeah, I would want to see new Mario Kart.
Wave Race.
Yeah,
basically all the racing games. They haven't really hit the racing games, really.
Yeah, they haven't done anything. I mean, they haven't created a new Mario Kart for Switch, which is insane because it's their best-selling franchise. I mean, the 8 Deluxe has sold like 50 million copies or something crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue they don't need to just yet, but it's getting to be time.
Yeah. So anyway, that's an Nintendo.
I won't be worried until if we get through August and no word on anything. Then I'll join you in the concern boat.
I say September. Right. I'm giving them till September.
September is like starting to get into prime holiday territory. So like if you don't have stuff lined up and announced by then to gather pre-orders during September to release something in October, that's weird.
My guess is they're releasing something in December because that's what they did with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Was they usually always release a game in December. That's a first-party game, so that's why I say September. It gives them
but there's also you need more than that. They need 2 games. They need 2 big games for the rest of the year.
I mean, I would agree, but if they're going to release one,
they need more than that. They need more than 2 big games to get through the next 6 months. But see, that's what I'm saying. Like that's old Nintendo. We're going to give you 2 games for 6 months. You're going to play it, you're going to beat it in a weekend, and you're going to wait 3.5 months for the next one.
Do you think they would ever try to, like, if they have Breath of the Wild 2 ready to go for this holiday, do you think they would drop it in November to compete with the next gen of consoles?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
They could throw it in the middle of all that, yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. It'll help people. I mean, and then they have the value proposition as well. I mean, they could really pull a double whammy if they release Breath of the Wild 2 and drop the price of Switch on the same day. Drop it by like $50 or whatever. They could actually take away a good bit of business from Sony and Microsoft if it did that. So they have a lot of opportunity, that's for sure. I mean, and they're doing very well. There's no denying that still. I'm just starting to see some flags go up that have me a little concerned. But you know what? I've already got my money's worth like 20 times over from the Switch. And I can't say I ever got my money back on Wii U. So let's celebrate. This has been a great generation for Nintendo. And I don't want people to think that I'm down on Nintendo. It's done a great job. But I do think we're starting to see sort of the law of diminishing returns with this software here. But it's been like 4 years. So it's kind of understandable at this point. Even Sony with the PlayStation 4, the last couple of years for PlayStation 4 haven't been all that great either. So it's just kind of a natural progression, particularly when you have a turnover of a new generation every 5 to 7 years or whatever. So letter grades for this, I'm going to give it a D. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I'm probably like a D. And honestly, it's only because I like Shin Megami Tensei. Everything else is useless to me.
Throw away. What about you, Mitch?
Yeah, I'm going to go with you guys. It's a D.
D's a 3D right across the board. It's very rare that we all agree on something, so that's good to see. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk now about Xbox Series X, and there's a lot to talk about because there's a big event coming up on Thursday, and we're both going to give a prediction or two for what we think is going to happen on Thursday. But we're going to talk about, a lot of the news that has broken over the last 5 or 6 days and how that will relate to what happens on Thursday. Literally, it has been a litany of Xbox news over the last week. The first thing we're going to talk about, because I think it may have the most far-reaching implications into the rest of the Xbox Series X ecosystem, is that you can no longer buy 12-month subscriptions to Xbox Live. You can no longer buy an annual Xbox Live pass. Currently, there are 1 and 3-month options available, which makes sense. If you look at it, you're like, oh, if somebody buys a 3-month thing right now, 1, 2, 3, oh, there's the launch of Xbox Series X. So Matt, there's all kinds of conjecture online about this. The biggest of which is, I believe, at least what I've seen the most, is that a lot of people believe that online play could be free on Xbox Series X. And so they've stopped with the annual memberships. They're only offering 3-month memberships with the idea that those would end when Series X launches. What do you think this is, Matt? Because this is a huge deal. No annual subscriptions for Xbox Live.
I think they're just folding the Xbox Live concept into Game Pass, and that's what you're going to subscribe to yearly now.
So you think? Do you think
I think there's not going to be anything? Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any separate Xbox Live Game Pass anymore. I think they're going to be the same thing. They're going to they'll have some name for it. They'll call it like, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate Live or something. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I think they're just folding all those things, all those 2 subscription things together into one package, and that's what it's going to be.
Now, do you think that the price will remain the same, so I can spend $60 a year and get Xbox Live and Game Pass?
I think that's a possibility. Yeah.
That seems like Microsoft would lose even more money on Game Pass than it's already losing. But
I think it depends.
It depends. So
what they're after with it. I mean, I think the Game Pass thing sounds crazy anyway. Like for most of the time, I'm not going to argue with it because it's good for us. Mm-hmm. But I assume they have a plan. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it'll be $70. Maybe they'll crank it up at $10, just like all the games. But
I mean, that seems more likely. And how do you think people would react to that? Because you're asking someone to pay extra money for something they may or may not even want.
I don't know. I think it depends. That's the kind of the problem with like not seeing sort of the OS and the integration yet is like, what is this thing going to do? What is the subscription going to get you? What are the bells and whistles it's going to enhance on the console? Like, I'm sure they have a whole presentation for us as to why this is a good thing and why this is going to be good for us and why you want to spend your money on it. We just don't know what it is yet. But it does seem like they are going to streamline their subscription services into one unit, would be my guess. I have a hard time believing that after all this time and all this free money they've gotten for a multiplayer, that they're going to suddenly just make that free. That doesn't track for me.
It seems unlikely, but it also seems like something Microsoft could do that could possibly turn the tide.
Yeah, there is a needle moving element to it. That's true.
If you're like, look, you can use online stuff for free, and maybe now $60 a year is for Game Pass, and online play is free. That could give them a boost when people are considering platforms. I don't think it would be something that would be a deal breaker for somebody, or completely be the reason why they would choose one console over the other. But I do think there's some value in that for sure. I think regardless, some big change is coming. There's clearly huge thing that's going to be announced I assume on Thursday.
I don't think so.
Really?
They said
you
all
think people
software.
Because Thursday's all games.
I've seen that. I don't know how you let this stuff go out there and just people just guess about it for like 3 months.
I guess it's fair because
we're not getting a price or a date.
But
I don't think we'll get that.
I get
either.
it, but if you look at it, Sony said they were only going to talk about first party, and they shut off the console. So I think that's fair to say that, Shane.
It's very possible. And if I don't want to go the next 3 months wondering what the hell's going on, because it's not just this, there's all this other stuff that's going on too, which segues nicely to the fact that Microsoft just discontinued 2 of the 3 active Xbox One platforms. Xbox One X is gone, and the Xbox all digital version is gone. The only version left that you can buy of the original Xbox is the Xbox One S. What's that about?
Well, I mean, we talked about that before, about basically killing those old SKUs and turning the Xbox brand into this is what Xbox is. It's the Series X and whatever they call Lockhart, which I think we've speculated would be Series S.
Yeah.
And
wait, sorry.
But why leave the One S?
Shane. You said Xbox Series S is being discontinued, or X?
Xbox One X is being discontinued.
Okay. Gotcha.
And the
Matt,
Xbox
Matt,
all digital version.
Gotcha.
The Xbox One S, I know it's so confusing. The One S is still available.
Sorry, the only reason I say is, Matt, because you were saying when you were talking about your point, you were talking including Xbox Series X, but that wouldn't be an option anymore. It's Xbox Series S. See?
The nomenclature is so bad, man.
It sucks.
I don't know. Really what?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, when you were saying your point, Matt, you were like, it's part of the family. And when you were saying the consoles that were in that family, you were saying Xbox Series X, but it's being discontinued. So they're not going to.
No, it's not. Series X is the new system.
No, Xbox One X is being discontinued.
Sorry. Yes, correct. And never mind.
Let's just stop.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
Now, my point was, do you think that in any way the discontinuation of those consoles are tied into the changes in Xbox Live subscriptions? Like, do you think that there's some big thing that all this stuff is wrapping up into?
No, I think it's just part and parcel of them trying to unify the brand and have everything be Xbox and all the games work on this one box that you buy. And it doesn't matter. It's not a One. It's not a 360. It's not anything like that. It's just an Xbox Series this or an Xbox Series that, and everything works on it, and you're done. It's an Xbox. And then we can bring out another one in 5 years. It's a little more powerful than the Series X. We'll call it a Series Z or whatever, and that'll be that. I think it's just part of their consolidation of the brand into a numberless cell phone model, basically.
And then the final piece of news. Well, actually, there was one that was added today, but the third piece of news is that backwards compatibility on Xbox Series X is going to be amazing. Microsoft committed this week that every single Xbox One game, as long as it's not a Kinect game, will be playable on Series X day one. I don't know how Sony can top that. I think that at this point is an advantage that Microsoft is going to have when both these consoles launch.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that because of, at least if what Cerny was saying is true, and that like most of PS4 will be supported and the top 100 will be enhanced, I feel like you're probably going to have to dig pretty deep in the PS4 library to find something that doesn't work, at least in the launch window. I guarantee you I have some things that won't. Yeah, I don't like that Godzilla game is probably not going to work on launch day. I'm assuming, which is too bad because I like that game.
Yeah.
But like this just kind of this universal claim of Microsoft is very bold. Just to say like, yeah, it all works unless you want to play a Kinect game, and who wants to do that?
This far out too.
What a difference! Like what a difference from a last generation where you're going to make me pay an extra $100 for this Kinect I don't need.
Now there's like we can't play the Kinect.
Yeah, now there's like you're not even going to be able to. No, we're never talking about this again. Like forget it. I'm sorry. Kinect Star Wars will never be backwards compatible. You're done.
Yeah.
You are missing another big piece of news, Shane, from Microsoft, that xCloud is going to be included with Game Pass Ultimate.
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
Which I think furthers Matt's point.
I kind of assumed that was going to be the case.
Yeah, and which I think it furthers Matt's point, where I imagine basically what's going to happen is I don't think they're going to give the internet away for free. They're not going to do that. I don't mean
online play.
Online play. They're not going to do that. I see them basically creating the SKU, like Matt was saying, in regards to like the Xbox family, and then saying, here are the tiers you can have for online play. You can do like Game Pass Ultimate and have xCloud included with it, and you get your gold subscription with Live in it. including with Game Pass, or like this is just Game
It's
Pass.
really getting confusing.
It's going to get like, if history says anything, Microsoft is going to find some way, unfortunately, to really confuse the consumer on this online play stuff if they're trying to consolidate and make tiers. Because that's basically what it sounds like they're doing, and they got to name it.
I think they should just simplify it, honestly.
And
I would hope that Microsoft is going to do that. You're probably right. That's not in Microsoft's DNA. It does tend to overcomplicate
I think they're going to think they're simplifying it.
Right.
They
and
should
actually overcomplicate it.
They literally should just make 2 tiers. One with Game Pass, including your Xbox Live, so you can play online, and then another one where it's Game Pass Ultimate that includes PC and xCloud, and then all the past one included with it. Like,
as long as that first tier is $60, I'm cool. If they're increasing the price of Xbox Live and forcing me to get Game Pass, I'm not cool with it, and I don't think most consumers will be either.
But I think the thing is, Shane, it's going to be a monthly subscription. So, like, the total cost would have to equal, or is Game Pass not monthly?
Xbox Live right now is $5 a month.
No,
so
I'm
if
sorry.
they end up jacking it up to like, if I have to spend $10 or $15 a month now to get Xbox Live because they've bundled it in with Game Pass, F you. That would be a terrible decision. I can't imagine.
Get free games,
even Microsoft, I don't think
would
do
free games. That's their selling point. That's
but they're free games that I'm not choosing. They're not free though. But you're paying $10 extra of what you're paying for Xbox Live.
But you can make the same argument as what Sony did when they did the PS3 to PS4, which was they included. Oh my gosh, PlayStation Plus.
Well, it was free. It went from free.
No, PlayStation Plus wasn't first free. And
no, I'm saying online play was free on PlayStation for a really long time. Correct. And then they started charging for it.
But then they charged online play going from PS3 to PS4, and there weren't many complaints there because people were happy because they still got to play some free games.
No, there weren't any complaints because people had already been paying for it on Xbox for the last 10 years. The people were looking at what Sony was doing as like a godsend. Like nobody expected Sony to do that. They were just appreciative of whatever amount of time they got where they were able to use the network for free because they were paying for it over on Xbox all that time.
Also, the difference between PlayStation 3 online play and Xbox 360 online play, you got what you paid for.
Little difference. You got what you paid for. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I hardly played anything online on PlayStation 3 other than like Uncharted and stuff like first party stuff. That was it.
I think there will probably be a tier system where like you've got a baseline version, you've got a middle version where you get like basically what would be Xbox Live Gold, and then you have an ultimate version which gets you Game Pass and everything. That might be more. Yeah, I think they're going to integrate Game Pass and Xbox Live more into each other. So the middle thing might be like standard Xbox. Like I could see like Xbox Basic, where like you just get kind of the basic features. Xbox Gold, where you get kind of what we'd consider Xbox Live Gold now, plus Game Pass on your Xbox Series X, and maybe Xbox Ultimate, which gets you all the same stuff but across all platforms, PC and everything. I think that's what they're after.
That actually segues nicely into the final announcement from this week. I told you guys it was insane for Xbox this week. Just today, Phil Spencer said that his plan to get Game Pass on other platforms is not working out, and so Microsoft is not going to go forward with that plan. So he said that obviously his competitors don't want anything other than Game Pass on their platform, and Microsoft wants to roll out everything onto those platforms to make it worthwhile financially. So it looks like it's just not going to work out. So our dreams of Game Pass on Switch or whatever, those are dashed, and they're not gonna happen.
I never saw it happening, so I'm not surprised.
I mean, it was a pipe dream. Like, I don't know what he was thinking. He's got bigger fish to fry right now than worrying about stuff like that. At least I think. So finally, we've come to where we're going to each make one prediction for the Xbox event, first party event on Thursday. Matt, what is your prediction? Can be anything.
I mean, there's a lot of easy stuff like Forza 8. I don't know. I've been saying it forever, but like I think we'll see Fable from the other half of Playground Games. Like it's pretty easy, but other than that, I don't really know what to think. Everything else would be a kind of a surprise. I just hope we don't get I just hope they don't hang all their hopes on Halo and Crackdown 4. How about that?
Okay, Mitch, do you have a prediction?
Oh, he took mine with Fable. Let me think. Come back to me. I'll take yours and then I'll try to do a different one because I was going to say Fable.
Okay. My prediction is that The Initiative, the brand new studio here in LA, is going to show a first look at the project that it's working on, and it is going to look better than anything else in the show. That's my prediction. Got one now, Mitch?
I think that Hellblade 2 will be there showing gameplay, and it will be announced for next year sometime. So
Hellblade 2 not coming in this year?
No.
I think we know that already, though.
Do we?
Yeah, Hellblade is next year.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
I didn't know we had a release date at all for it. I thought
there's no release date, but it is not this year.
Okay. So they've already said 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't know they said that.
And we don't know when in 2021. Could be Q1 2021. Who knows?
Yeah.
And also, Epic did say that trailer is running in real time on Unreal 5. That trailer they put out.
Impressive. For sure. So is that the end of your prediction, Mitch?
I guess I'll change it because since Matt already said it already exists.
Well, it's kind of hard because other than what we've already said, you're sort of making stuff up out of thin air because we just don't know what Microsoft is doing.
I guess.
You can use knowledge. The Initiative has been around for a couple years now. They should have something to at least show. And now, granted, the game probably won't be ready for release until 2022. But they should have some stuff to show.
Here's one. I think Microsoft will show more exclusive games than Sony did at theirs.
That's a good one. I like that prediction.
It may not be gameplay. It could just be titles. It could just be showing off a developer talking about it. But they are going to show off more exclusives because I think that's what they need right now.
Yeah, that would be kind of revolutionary for them.
Absolutely.
Even if these games are coming out 5 years from now, I think they will announce almost everything they're working on just to say, hey, we're working on stuff, because
that would be smart.
That's not what's their bread and butter.
Even if I'm not going to play that Obsidian game for another 2 years, I want to know it's coming.
Right? Yeah,
I want to know what it is.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin Rafa says Banjo-Kazooie revealed a new one. Or maybe a remake.
Maybe. Where's Battletoads?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that game gets a shadow drop or something on Thursday. I wouldn't be surprised if it launches on Thursday.
How about this? Just a mini prediction. What would Halo Infinite have to be to get you interested? How drastic a reinvention would that have to be?
It would have to be really drastic. It would have to be revolutionary. I would have to look at it and say to myself, that's Halo?
Yeah, I would say the tone has to be completely different of what it's been. I have to obviously recognize it's Master Chief, but it has to almost come off as unrecognizable, but yet recognizable.
Well, we've already seen the engine, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah. It's just they need to reinvent it into something that I don't know if they've got.
If they make Halo into a super action-packed sliding on the ground, running on the walls, doing crazy stuff like that, that might interest me a little bit more. And Master Chief just jumps up with a laser sword,
a Titanfall type mechanic.
Yeah, Titanfall-ish. I mean, still same with first-person shooter, but just change it up, in regards to how we would play it, because Halo seems to be a little more methodical and not as much in your face. And I think Master Chief is tough. Get them in your face and I
feel like it's just lost to some of its intensity. Remember when they built the first couple games, Bungie would always talk about how they built the entire game in 15-second loops. They just kept stacking 15 seconds of fun on top of each other until they ran out of time, and that was the game. And I feel like since it left Bungie, that concept has kind of gone out the window.
Yeah, well, I just would like to see them. I don't feel like after the end of Halo 3, they've ever recaptured the kind of the mythic scope of, even if I didn't understand what was going on all the time. And I did get I got a book called the Halo Mythos. It came out a few years ago, but it was on sale, so I got it. And it basically runs through the entire Halo story from 10 million years ago to the end of the events of Halo 5. And the thing that really struck me about it was that the summary of the prehistory stuff is crazy. It's just Forerunners and Precursors and Reclaimers and okay, whatever, guys. But you get to the Halo games, and the summary of what happened from Halo 1 to Halo 3 is like tight and focused, and this is what happened, this is the story, and then they get to like Halo 4 and Halo Wars 2, and like the summaries are like 9 pages long. And I'm just like, what is happening anymore? Like they completely lost the thread on what made those games work, which was they were heightened space opera, basically, that just it moved in broad strokes and it moved in big moments, and like they just 4 and 5 just don't have that.
That's the human element part of game development. They don't have the same human beings working on the franchise, and the human beings that worked on it before had a different perspective on what the game should be and how it should play than the new people. And so, again, it's just another shooter now. Is really how I feel about it. It's not anything special anymore. And I agree with you, Matt. Halo used to be huge. Like, it's funny looking at the traffic for Halo Infinite on Sifted. It does okay, but man, back like in the Halo 3 days, Halo was gold. Like, we'd put something up for Halo on game trailers and just watch it explode. Like, that's not happening anymore. No. And I think it needs a drastic reinvention before it ever will happen again.
Yeah. I tell you what I always think about, because I believe part of the premise is that they're trapped on the Ark. Which is like the facility that was that they went to in Halo 3 that was like outside of the galaxy and was like a forerunner, like fallback base if the flood got out of control in the galaxy. And it basically had the arms of the Ark have environments in them for almost every imaginable planet or habitat or animal. Like the Forerunners collected all these forms of life and stored them away, and that's why it's called the Ark, right? And like, I keep thinking when Halo Infinite makes me think of Marathon Infinity, which was the third Marathon game before the first Halo started being worked on. And Marathon Infinity is notable because it deals with multiple timelines. It deals with like various multiversal threads, and it like you replay the same moments over and over, but you change time to do it, and that makes something else happen later. Like, it's one of the most like ambitious stories of that mid-90s shooter era. And like only Bungie would have been crazy enough to try it, and they did it, and it worked. And when you say infinity, you say infinity or infinite in reference to Halo, you make me think of that. You make me think of that kind of thing. And if you are kind of adventuring through this arc, which is full of all these different environments and recreations of different planets and portals that beam you to God knows where, like, this could be a fascinating like trip through this whole like various forms of environments. The sky's kind of limit. You're in a sort of a Valerian in the City of 1,000 Planets thing where you break through a wall and you're in another world kind of thing. But I just hope we're not driving another Warthog across a featureless plain again. Like, that's what I really mean.
Look at the trailer. That's exactly.
It sure does look like it. But there's like
there's animals now though.
But there's like stargates around and stuff. So I'm hoping that like there's a little more give and take on the environment settings.
Yeah.
But I really don't know what this has to be to make me interested again, because
a big change at least, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
With that premise of what you're going for, Matt, in regards to like these giant spaces that are completely different, of different planets similar to Valerian, which I think is a really cool concept. I enjoyed that movie for that reason. But do you think then it's going to tailor itself more towards an open world game?
And I think they are, yeah. I think they are going to go more of an open world concept. And I don't know. I mean, look, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that briefly. We'll talk about that later on with Ghost of Tsushima. But like, I still like the open world stuff. I still like that concept and that formula. And adapting it to Halo might be a little different and a little difficult, maybe.
Halo's always kind of been big open world game.
Halo's had open spaces, but they're pretty linear games.
Oh, they're completely linear. Absolutely.
So like having this be more of
but I'm saying the combat actually working in like wider, more open spaces, it's already been proven that it can.
Right. Well, that was like the draw originally, was no one else was doing that. Outside of something like Serious Sam, which is more of an arcade shooter, whereas like you had in the original Halo, even if you weren't impressed by it because you'd already been playing multiplayer on PC with things like Tribes, the impressive part of Halo was really the scope and the music and the mythic quality and the fact that these enemies ran around, hid behind rocks, like they used tactics.
Yeah, the AI was so realistic.
Like it just wasn't. There wasn't any comparison in shooters to that really at the time, and it changed how you. And it was all once they did more interviews about it, it's like it's not even what the enemies are doing. It's about the enemies being aware of the environment and acting like they know what they're doing. doing. It's an illusion, but it worked. And they kind of got away from that. And as the Prometheans got brought in Halo 4 and 5, they discarded that completely. It's just
they just don't feel alive anymore.
No.
That's the thing. The enemies in Halo always felt alive. Like they had personalities, like they would talk about their like brother. You're like, dude, you're a creature. What are you talking about? But there was just this, there was just like this vibe about the games that the last two haven't had. So most importantly, I hope they get the Halo vibe back. Whatever they have to do to get it, I'm cool with it.
How Master Chief got his groove back.
That'd be better than how Stella got her groove back, probably.
I literally asked that question because I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what they can do to Halo Infinite to make me sit up and bark again.
Well, we may find out on Thursday what they shouldn't do to make you sit up and bark. We'll see how it goes. Just 2 days away. Okay, we're going to talk next about Metacritic. A little bit of inside baseball discussion here. Metacritic this week decided that it was going to pause publishing user reviews, or actually pause users submitting user reviews until 36 hours after a game releases. I honestly don't give a crap, but obviously users are pretty angry about it and pretty pissed off. Matt, is this another one of those controversies that doesn't deserve to be a controversy?
Well, it doesn't deserve to be a controversy in the sense of like, hey, you can wait a day and a half to play the game before you start review bombing it because you didn't like that a woman was in it.
I should have said that, actually. I should have mentioned that Metacritic in its messaging about this said that, look, you guys are reviewing the game and you obviously haven't played it yet. So we're going to give this 36-hour window to ensure that more people play the game before they give their knee-jerk reactions to it on Metacritic. And really, we all know why this is happening. This is happening because The Last of Us Part 2 was review bombed. Right now, the user score...
And a bunch of games have been, but The Last of Us Part 2 is just the most recent example.
But I think that was kind of the final straw, because anybody who has played that game can go to Metacritic and look at the user score and realize it's complete bullshit. Right. So this is a problem for Metacritic because their job is to supply reliable aggregate scores. And when you have
the current user rating for Last of Us Part 2 on Metacritic is 5.5.
Right.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't. It's not going to tell someone whether they should buy that game or not. And so Metacritic is put in this weird position of our service's functionality is becoming obsolete because of trolls. And at that point, you've got to make a big move. And that's exactly what Metacritic has done. Now, another thing I would say is when these sites popped up, Metacritic, what was it called? GameRankings.com?
Game Rankings or Game Ranks or something
that
like that?
Was GameSpot's website, which actually now has folded. And it was first. It came out first. Metacritic came along.
I remember that.
And Metacritic came along and did everything. And they had all the marketing money, and GameSpot didn't care about really marketing its site, and it just got annihilated, and now it's gone.
Yeah,
so
and also like there was a lot of people that had trouble telling the difference between Game Rankings and Metacritic.
Yeah,
it was the people felt they were interchangeable, and so much of them were. The way they worked was so similar that some people thought they were the same site. Like it was just not differentiated well.
Right. Now, back when those sites launched, I would definitely argue that you needed user reviews because the official aggregate review score was really only comprised of like 30 or 40 publications. It was like 20 websites and 10 magazines. And so, that's not scientific. You need probably a little more data to help you make your purchase decisions. But now there are so many publications on Metacritic, just hundreds and hundreds, to the point where I honestly don't know that we even need user reviews for games anymore. It's like when we did polls on game trailers, once you get to a certain number, things never really change. They just stay the same because you basically need someone to carpet bomb it to change it, to be honest, which is funny. And so I don't see really any value in the user reviews at Metacritic anymore. Do you?
No, I've never seen value in user reviews of anything, frankly. I can count the number of user reviews of that seem to have like thought and usefulness behind them on one hand that I've ever read for a video game in the history of doing this. Like, it's not to say that like people shouldn't be able to share their opinions, but it's like I don't care about that side of the page, basically. Like, it's like I might read it for entertainment just to see like what crazy things people are saying, but like, I know when I look at the user reviews on things, if they're like just, distinctly skewed from something from the critics' reviews, or if they're just like ridiculously low for anything that I know is not a legitimately bad game. Like, you just often there's an agenda there, and there's no check on like, have you really bought the game? Have you really played the game, etc. So it's just, it's very, very susceptible to that kind of thing, and the same kind of thing applies to movies and TV shows, that Metacritic has that problem for a long, long time. And I think, there was a lot of trouble with that surrounding things like Batman versus Superman, I think, and like the
been
war,
several movies that have just got lit.
The war over stuff like that. And it's just, I don't see I know it drives engagement because, like, look, Last of Us 2 has 131,000 user ratings here.
And that's why Metacritic will never, ever get rid of user reviews. My guess is that user reviews or reading user reviews or trolling probably represents at least 50% of Metacritic's traffic.
Oh,
that would be my guess. And it may be way higher than that. I'm trying to give Metacritic the benefit of the doubt here.
I don't think it's Metacritic's fault. I think it's the fault of people doing that to it.
No, I didn't say it was their fault at all. But I'm just saying that, like, Metacritic, I think, is making the right decision here. Mm-hmm. Because honestly, will they lose traffic? Yeah. And I admire Metacritic for saying, you know what, we're going to do something that's going to make our website better, but it's going to make us lose traffic. Because I believe that ultimately when you do that, you're going to get paid back for that in the long run. You're going to lose some people at first, but over the long run, it's like the stock market. Oh, there's a dip, but still it just keeps going up. So I think that they've made the right choice. I don't read user reviews at all.
But you'll miss out on it. So I just pulled up Paper Mario to see like comparison, like how many user ratings there are for that, which is more like 800 something, because it's newer. But one of the negative user reviews just says bad game, very bad game, very, very bad game, very ultra very bad game, super very bad game. 0 out of 10.
Basically, what they're doing is they're hitting the character limit for the review.
Yeah. There's your insight.
Yeah,
that is weighted just as much as someone who wrote 500 words about it.
Yes, because that's another thing that they've done to try to stem the tide of this is create things like that. Like you have to write at least 100 characters, or you can't. So they just copy and paste the same thing over and over so that they can leave
There's another one that just says bad
for all the characters that they need. Exactly. Yep. Again, do we need user reviews? I'm curious, like in chat, do you guys think we need user reviews? Do you guys rely on them? Like,
I do. I think
you
so.
do.
Absolutely.
Oh, I don't. Like even like Rotten 100%. Tomatoes, I never look at the user reviews for movies or anything.
I may not look at the, obviously you're going to run into those kind of reviews where Matt read off, where it's just comical to
trolling.
Read. Yeah, but I think I could use an example of when I was making content a little over a year ago. I was talking about how Days Gone, where reviewers probably I think unjustly lowered that, had such low scores for that game, where actually the user score I thought matched more up with what the game actually was. I think it was like an 81, and I felt like Days Gone was around an 81 in my mind as a user score, but I think the reviewer score was like at a 76 or something like that, and I felt that's pretty close. It was close.
That's not that much of a disparity.
True, but I think
you're kind of splitting hairs there. You really like Days Gone,
but I think
what I'm reading from this, you really liked it, other people didn't. You want the score?
I enjoyed it, but I think at the same time, seeing some reviewers giving it, like actual journalists giving it a 6, like really brought that score down. But in the end, for me, it kind of helped understand of like, okay, I'm not outside the norm here of understanding like this game is actually a good game. It's not a horrible game, where like if you get something in the 7s now, it's considered pretty bad. Like it's considered
it's average.
I see.
I mean, that's why it's the 7 to 10 scale that we always talk about.
But I guess in my mind, and the way I've seen the way of games have evolved over this time in regards to, because there's not as many games in the market anymore, I see 7 as like you shouldn't touch it. Like it's not something you should buy.
5 is supposed to be average.
But to be honest, like
but they're fudging their scales so that 7 actually becomes average.
Yeah, so that's where the issue comes into play, and so that's where I think sometimes a user score does help. And so in that aspect in Days Gone, I think an 8 really is where what people would imagine is it's a good game. It's not a great game, but it's a good game and it's worth buying. probably.
I think the 71 Metascore for Days Gone kind of says that already to me. I don't need the 8.2 user score, but it is interesting to note that the user score has 6,300 ratings for Days Gone, another Sony exclusive that is pretty well liked on the internet, as opposed to 139,000 user ratings for Last of Us 2. Like, that's the thing, is like, the 36-hour like grace period is one thing, but maybe once you start getting 100,000 more ratings than normal on something, you could shut that down a little bit to stop the brigading. Like that's,
then you know that people are organizing across the internet to come and flood the page. Yeah. And I'm surprised their site didn't go down. I mean, they basically doxed it, but it stayed up. They must have a lot of money going to Amazon Web Services every month to make sure.
Well, at this point, I think they're kind of used to it.
That could be. Yeah. They may just have it set up that way
but
all the time.
But I totally agree with them taking the 36-hour break, because I agree that someone shouldn't be putting up a review if they've never played the game, especially something like, holy cow, like The Last of Us Part 2, where that one, you really need to complete that game before you can really say something. Yeah,
it should at least, like, you definitely should actually have to at least wait long enough to complete the game.
Which is about the amount of time you need to finish that game. So it works.
Right.
See, I don't trust user reviews because I have no context whatsoever. I have no idea who those people are. I have no idea if they're raging PlayStation fanboys. I have no idea if this is the first video game that they've played in the last 3 years. I have no idea if they hate this publisher or this developer. To me, without context, there's no value. So
I think sometimes, like I totally agree that like you don't know who they are, but I think not obviously every user review you have to take it with a grain of salt and kind of look at it thoughtfully when you're looking at. So like something like the example when Matt said there was only he said 7,000 you said for Days Gone.
It was like 8,000.
8,000. It's not like there's a ton of people on there saying a bunch of stuff, so you might run into people that are more
That's
likely
a lot,
to,
by the way. Matt, maybe jump around to another game that's like a year old and see how many reviews.
That's ratings. That's where you just click the number score.
And you don't write anything.
You don't write anything. You're talking about written user reviews for Days Gone. There's 2,000 positive, 150 mixed, and 214 negative. Yeah. So that's you're in the low 2000s.
I'm curious how the average game, how many reviews it gets. Maybe you could just look at like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, maybe. Because my guess is there's a lot more for Days Gone than most games because it's an exclusive.
Oh, sure. No, I totally get you.
Because you get the PlayStation fans rolling in there trying to defend their game, and they're all giving it tens.
The PS4 Assassin's Creed Odyssey has 2,444 user ratings. And more like 700 written reviews.
Way less, yeah. Less than half of what you have for Days Gone. So there was some mobilization of PlayStation fans going there to check up the score. And
Nintendo's exclusives seem to be similar.
Same deal. Yep. They get their communities to go and try to jack up the score. So again, that's why I don't trust. You don't know how any of this.
But it really, like the Last of Us 2 thing, you can see why they made a move on that because the user can. And remember the user score, like where you just tap a number, is the 139,000 whatever on Last of Us 2. The user score on Breath of the Wild, which is probably like another game, clearly big game, everybody knows about it, huge numbers of fans.
Been out for a long time.
Been out for like 3 years, 15,000 ratings.
Yeah.
And the written reviews are a little over 4,000.
Yeah. I guess quarantine helped with that one a little bit.
Yeah. So the Last of Us 2 is just on a different level.
It's an anomaly.
I think it was a PlayStation exclusive that did not get great reviews. And so I'm talking about Days Gone, not Last of Us Part 2. And so I think that's why you're seeing Days Gone have more than even those other games we were looking at. And obviously, we know the story with The Last of Us Part 2. It's just gross. It's really what it comes down to. It's just gross.
And the Last of Us 2, by the way, 132,000 ratings. And 32,000 positive reviews, 33,000 negative reviews, and 3,600 mixed.
It's insane. It's crazy. But all three of us do agree that this is the right thing for Metacritic to do, to put that 36-hour hold on user reviews. I think if you're trying to address the issue and you're not just going to get rid of them, which they'll never do because they'll lose so much traffic, this is probably the best way to approach it.
Yeah, even Avengers Endgame only has 4,700 user ratings. Like Last of Us 2 is in another universe.
I mean, even Days Gone did more than that, almost double. Yeah. That's crazy. Holy crap. Okay, so anyway, I don't even know if you guys use Metacritic. We actually use it on the site. We use their API to pull in their aggregate scores from critics onto the game pages. So if you go to our game page, you'll see my score, Sifted score, and then their score. That's actually Metacritic's average for that game.
The only Metacritic thing I care about is the fantasy draft.
Yep. That's about the only time it matters for me during the year, too. All right. It's time to head into our last topic for episode 221. I think I've left enough time for us to discuss this game. We're going to talk about Ghost of Tsushima, which could be the last PlayStation 4 exclusive, first-party exclusive that is ever released. And chances are it probably will be. Did they go out with a bang? I think so. Are you guys? So. I think all of us are enjoying, at the very least, enjoying the game.
Oh, I love this game. Yes.
I am about 4 or 5 hours into Act 2. Matt, how far are you into the game?
I'm like halfway through Act 2. Okay. I have one more of the main things to do before I can do the thing you're supposed to do at the end of Act 2.
Okay.
So I have most of the middle part of the island done. I have 100% everything done on the first part of the island. I've been probably playing for like 20 some hours.
Wow, Matt, you played more than I have.
Yeah. I'm less than 20, I think. I'm probably around like 18, something like that.
I mean, I've been playing a lot of this game. This is exactly what I wanted, pretty much. This is exactly what I was expecting, exactly what I wanted. It does everything I like. It has a nice little, as we say, it doesn't reinvent the wheel of the open world game, but it does refine a couple things, and I like the elegance of it. And I like the fighting, and the story is nothing to write home about, but I do think it's a serviceable samurai yarn. If you kind of love those old Kurosawa and other kind of Chambara dramas, and I have every complaint I have about it is such a tiny little nitpick that it's almost not even worth it. Like it's just good.
Let's set up the story. You guys probably know, but I'll just give you a quick synopsis to frame the rest of our discussion.
Oh, sorry, for context. I am in Act 2, and I've basically almost completed the entire first island like Matt did, and I've just been doing tons of side stuff. So I'm probably like 2 hours.
So you're at the early part of Act 2?
2 hours in Act 2, probably played 19 hours, something like that.
All right. So anyway, you live on the island of Tsushima, which is invaded by the Mongols. And that's how the game basically kicks off, is the Mongols are invading your island. Your leader, the leader of the samurai, is kidnapped and taken to a castle. And you are his nephew. And so the main goal for the first third of the game, the first act, is rescuing your uncle from the castle. And to do that, you end up having to recruit several warriors that you come across, and they all join your side. And then you go and you try to rescue the uncle from the castle. And then for Act 2, basically the goalpost is just moved, because you basically attack the first island, and then you move on to the second and third islands after that. As Matt hinted at, and I was surprised to hear him say this actually, but I agree with him 1,000,000%. The story in this game is not very good. It's kind of a baseline that's just there as a setup more than anything. After coming off of, and this may be unfortunate for this game, coming off of The Last of Us Part 2, the writing, the voice acting, the story, the intertwining plot lines of that, I think probably affected my opinion of the story in this a little bit. But I do feel like it stays true to the genre as far as the films are concerned. I would also say that it's probably better than most samurai movies that have come out. But also I believe that that's kind of a low bar.
Yeah, I mean, they can't all be Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
I would also argue that in true Witcher 3 fashion, which this game takes a lot of influence from, the character side stories are better than the main story.
Yeah,
like there's as you meet
big rewards for this side quest too.
As you meet major characters through the game, and then they get kind of their own side story.
Tales, they're called.
Yeah, it's called Tales of Masako and Tales of the various, and those work real well. They're kind of done episodically. They have the more interesting stuff because the main story is a pretty standard. Mongols try to invade, and you have to fight back, and there's a little bit of conflict over like whether you're being honorable about it because obviously samurai are not supposed to sneak around and stab people in the back, but they are so horribly outnumbered that Jin decides that this is the only way to do it. And there's no need to like choose really between which way to play, but like a couple times.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me. I really thought that like the ghost versus the samurai stuff would be more segmented and discreet, but
I think we talked about that when they did that big demo, and I didn't think they were going to do that at all, which they did.
Choose to do whatever you want whenever you want.
Yeah, whatever the situation demands, you can do. And as I said, then I do tend to stand up and fight more often than sneak around because while the sneaking is actually interesting and there's some interesting ways to go about it, it's always faster to just kill everybody.
Well, and then doing a standoff, you can take out 2 to 3 guys in just one boom. And sometimes you can even take out the head guy. And so then you don't, the challenge in
the
combat
standoffs are a little janky though, because it's like, I like them, but like figuring out who you're going to stand off with is just like random. Like, you're right. Yeah, every once in a while, I do end up being able to face off against the king of the camp or whatever. But more often than not, it's like some dude with a crappy sword that I'm probably going to kill with 1 slash anyway. Well, I wish there was a better way to select who you stand off with.
I really don't care.
Not really, I don't care.
Who you stand off against. It's just killing people before you have to fight them in the main brawl.
Right, but I'd rather be able to select the tougher enemies to kill in the standoff so I don't have to actually fight them later.
Like the point at that time is whoever's in charge sends the soldier to fight the samurai. Because he says,
I don't think so. I think I've been able to actually select the person.
You cannot select who does it.
The only way you can be close to...
It's random. It's not, it doesn't work that way.
The only way it's
random.
I pointed the camera right at enemies, and that's the person that I stand off against.
Yes, that is possible. Like you can get close to
it's random.
It's that guy.
It's not entirely random. It's like sometimes I have been able to line up my person in front of another person and hit the standoff, and they were the one to come forward. It doesn't work every time. Doesn't work every time, but sometimes it does work that way. But
I wish it was better, and you could actually see a halo on somebody, so you know who you're calling out.
But who says that they would come to you? I think it's disingenuous to the era you're in. Like at that time, not that one. If you call out one soldier, doesn't mean that guy's going to come over. If they're in a crew, they're going to listen to their commander.
I'm just going to say right now, I don't know anything about samurai history. I'm just talking about what would make the game more enjoyable for me to play. Maybe you're a samurai scholar. I'm definitely not.
Well, I'm not a samurai scholar, but I think
he just means that if you can't choose who they send out to fight you. If you stand there and yell, "Hey, send your best warrior," they're not necessarily going to send their best warrior. They're going to send private moron who
thinks someone's super confident. Like unless he's confident,
sometimes you get a good guy. I don't know. To me, like I play this game 20. I could play this game another 40 hours, and it would never occur to me to think that. About
I thought it the first time I used it. I was like, why can't I call out the person I want?
I could not possibly care less who comes out to fight me for those things. Like it's just to get your resolve maxed out before you fight the rest of the guys in the group, because everybody else is gonna die anyway. Like it's nice when the big guy comes out, so I don't have to do so much dodging. But like, meh, like whatever. Especially when you get it like leveled up so you can do 3 of them. Like you're just like it's just free kills at that point.
Yeah, and the renown that goes along with it as well, which gives you the ability. We should probably explain
the resolve.
Resolve. So the way resolve works in this game, there are these little yellow dots at the bottom of the screen, and for every dot, you can basically it's a heal. But
or you can do super power like special moves with it. If you want.
You can use special moves.
Mostly for healing.
And as you start working through the skill tree and upgrading stuff, there are things that you can activate that will replenish renown, and one of them is the standoffs. When you first start, you can only just stand off with one person. You can eventually level that up so you can instant kill like 3. So you'll kill the first guy, and then 2 more will rush in. And as long as you time it right, you can basically just kill 3 enemies all right in succession.
Although there seems to be something more, because there is a trophy for killing the maximum number of enemies in a standoff, and I have not gotten that yet, even though I've killed 3 people over 100 times in those. Yeah. So there must be something more to it somewhere.
The tree seems to grow. Like all of a sudden I thought the tree was finished, and all of a sudden I got the ability to stab a guy through a door. And then all of a sudden
I got that just by doing it in the game.
Yeah. I know. That's my point. Like, you got so far in the game, and then you did that, and then all of a sudden that ability appeared in the tree, and it wasn't there before. So I think
that one you can't upgrade either. There's no upgrading it. So I just think it was kind of like a token. They're like, yeah, you can do this now.
Throw that in there.
But I think it's showing as if because throughout this game they constantly are adding new things to you as the player, and things that you can do in regards to like armor you can upgrade, abilities you can do, stances. So I think it shows that even though you see the skill tree, that's not everything you can do. Like, they're going to add more to the skill tree as you keep going.
But Mitch, that attack was showing the whole time. It was grayed out, but it was there. And then once you do it in the game, then you can see it.
Yeah, they haven't added it. Yeah, it was there with a lock on it. It was always
there. It didn't appear after you did it. It was there.
Okay. I must have missed it then.
Yeah. Let's talk about the combat, or the dichotomy of the combat. So, Matt, you say you go swords blazing all the time.
Most of the time. Like, it depends what I think is going to go faster. Or, like, I will go stealth if there's, like, hostages, because they do the thing where if you get in an open fight, usually, like, one guy will get a skull over his head, and which means he's going to run and try and kill the hostage.
Yep.
So then you got to run over there and fight him real fast. Like, so if there's hostages, it's usually easier to just do the stealth thing. But if it's just like, go clear the camp out, like, once I get the bonus objective done, like, I'm going loud, like, immediately. Like, I will kill them much faster doing that.
To your point about trying to deciding which role you want to play based upon how quickly you can finish the fight, that was the impetus for me saying, I wish I could call out a guy for the standoffs. Like, I also want to be able to finish it as quickly as possible. And you said
no one lasts much longer against me than anyone else, really, except some early on. The big guys with the axes were kind of my bane, but eventually I learned that I can just, once I got the slow time thing with the bow, I just roll backwards, point the bow at their face, slow time down, shoot him in the face, and he's dead. Like, I never learned to fight those guys effectively.
That's kind of the thing with this game. To me, the game is really easy. I've really faced very little resistance, and when I did face any resistance, I just stealthed it and just wiped it out. The bow is so freaking overpowered in this game. It's like basically a one-shot kill once you get it to a certain point, almost no matter where you hit an enemy. And once you start adding on those extra features like you talked about, like the slowdown, it's just a killing machine. Like, there was so little resistance playing this game that I kind of started losing interest a little bit, which was good, because then I would just jump over to Paper Mario for a few hours and then come back. But I did not feel a lot of resistance. And so, to your point of, you know what, they're all going to be dead anyway, I understand what you're saying, because I don't feel threatened by hardly anyone in this game. You can also manipulate the AI in the game really easily. Like, you can just run away. There's a certain point where they just stop and turn and run back. So I just figure out where that spot is. I run to it. They come, they turn to go the other way, and I just start shooting them in the back with the bow. Like, the stealth, like, the enemies can't see squat. Like, you can literally be right next to them and assassinate them. Like, it is really easy, I think.
I do. It's not a super challenge, but I will say this, that, like, you die real fast if you get
2
sloppy.
shots, you're dead. Yeah.
Like, and now, of course, I've got a huge life bar and tons of resolves. Like, it's much, much harder to kill me. Like, I don't know, like, the closest I think I've come is when you first get into Act 2 and you start fighting the Mongols up in that area. They have a lot more. They have some new weapons. They have some new armor. And, like, they have some.
You can't shoot them in the head. You have to shoot them in the body with the bow.
One thing I do appreciate about the standoffs, like, moving forward in that game, is, like, there is a huge variety of animation of them finally, because when the standoffs happen, you have to hold triangle, like, as your hand on your sword, because it's the classic samurai thing where they draw the sword real fast and kill the guy before they can blink. And the way you do that is the enemy stands there and kind of, like, he'll, like, kind of feint at you a little bit, but you have to wait for him to actually charge at you and attack, and then let go of triangle and he slices them. And the animation variety of like those lunges and the behaviors vary per enemy type. And like I've been pretty impressed. They don't fool me much, but I've been pretty impressed by the amount of work was put into like not making that by rote every single time. And then you start running into more enemies that are even better at sword fighting. And I've actually been fooled a couple times by them. So I appreciate that they tried on that one. Usually you do feel like just I mean, that's kind of the part of. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the point. It's part of the theme of being the ghost, as they call you, is like you are this like inhuman killing machine, and eventually
people start to get scared of you after a while.
Some of your high level abilities will unlock a percentage chance of the enemies getting afraid when you kill.
And they will run away.
Which I hate because I'll
have to run after them.
Well, those are the guys I'll pick off with the bow. It's like, no, you don't get to go away.
Yeah. Right in the back of the neck, right in the nape of the neck.
The combat, though, I will piggyback off Matt. It reminds me of, like, yes, it is easy in a sense, but I think it's as satisfying as something as the Arkham games. Like Arkham games.
The combat's very similar to Arkham.
Arkham is probably the closest.
It's probably like an Arkham mixed with Neo with the stances, and I think it does a better use of stances than Neo does in its game. And obviously they're kind of two different polarizing different kinds of games, but I think it uses it really well in regards to the countering, the using of different tools and abilities. I think it just feels good. And so regardless of if it's mega challenging in any way, I think it supersedes that with how well everything feels in my hands while I'm hitting these buttons on the controller. Because everything I've hit has been pretty satisfying to every end.
The stances at first make a huge difference. So again, we'll let you guys, we'll fill you in on how these work. So there are 4 different stances, I believe.
Yes.
Technically 5, but the 5th stance is more of like a super move thing.
Yeah. And then there's a rock paper scissors system to it. Each stance is effective. One stance is effective against a guy with a shield. One's effective against a guy with a pole. One's effective against a guy with a sword. And early on in the game, it makes a major difference. There was a mini boss that I fought on a side mission, and I fought him with I can't remember which stance I was using, but I kept using the same stance. I lost like 3 times in a row. I switched to the sword stance and beat him first try.
Wait, it didn't stop you and say like, because sometimes they'll stop you in the
Never
middle
did.
and say,
No, it
hey,
didn't.
Yeah,
It
still nags me about that. Even if I try to take one shot at a guy with the wrong stance, sometimes it'll freeze the game back. Hey, did you know you can? Yes, I did know that. I just don't think I need it right now. Can you leave me alone, please?
Well, what I was getting at is that later on in the game, the stances don't seem to matter as much. Like maybe I'm just so overpowered that it doesn't really matter. But in the early game, it did. Like I could see a difference fighting enemies that were of a particular discipline. Later on in the game, I'm not really seeing it with the stance.
I think it still matters in the sense of like being able to cut through people quicker, because the main difference in stances is like if you're using the right stance against the right weapon type, your heavy attacks stagger them much more effectively, and eventually you get some like upgrades that are real. Not like this. The spear guys are annoying. They can be, especially in groups, because they can attack real quick. But there is like, if you're in the stance that fights the spear guys, you can have an upgrade that makes it so you will automatically parry anything a spear guy throws at you if you are attacking while they attack you. Yeah. And that can save your butt many, many times. And just like the moon stance, which is the one you use against brutes, which those guys can be real annoying in groups. Like mainly I use stances to get out of group combats if I end up in that, which is probably more prevalent for how I play, because I just walk in the middle of the camp and yell everybody come at me, and so I end up fighting like 10 guys a lot.
Yeah. I think it really works in regards to, because there's a slowdown between the switching of the stances, so it actually gives you a really nice opportunity to be able to make that adjustment once you take out a guy with a shield, here comes the guy with the spear. It gives you a good opportunity to flip to that stance,
and you can actually,
as long as you're not having to adjust the camera. Like the camera in this game is pretty freaking awful in a lot of cases, and a lot of times I've found that the time that I would use to switch my stances, which is just holding the R2 and then selecting a face button, the time that I would use to do that, I'm instead using my right thumb to move the camera around so I can actually see like the enemies.
See, my difficulty is more of I accidentally hit the D-pad instead of the face buttons, and when I'm switching stances by accident. Because I think something that is like a nitpicky thing for me, the controls on this are a little weird when you're switching between the different tools, and the different stances, it's not as uniformed as I would like it to be, but I can still work with it. But that's where I struggle with it more than the camera.
The camera's crap in a lot of places, though. I mean, you have to admit you've had camera problems.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in my
like I've been attacked off screen constantly. Like sometimes I just give up. Like the angle just goes berserk, and there's an enemy approaching me, and the camera is like my back is taking up like 70% of the screen, and I can just see like the enemy like in the crook of my character's arm, and I don't have time to like move the camera. I just have to roll with it.
Yeah, so, if you go to my Sifted HQ footage, I have some B-roll of me taking out a leader, and there is a little bit of the camera zooming in into his back because of
I have had a lot of problems with the camera in this game.
It's
constantly.
There for sure. I don't think it's as common for me. I don't run into it as much that it's a big issue, but it is definitely something that is an issue.
It's something I got used to pretty quick. It's the camera needs babysitting is more what I would say. Like it gets a little too close at times. Once in a while, I have to kind of like do like a dodge roll back to sort of like feel like that kind of resets the camera, and like I get to see everybody a little clearer. But as someone who's played a ton of Dark Souls games, like that's just not a
You're just used to it.
That's just I'm used to fighting guys that are slightly off camera. Like that's but it is, and it was a little weird early on for me to be like, there's no lock on in this game. Like it kind of surprised me, but then once I kind of figured out, it's like, oh, it's more of an Arkham system.
I mean, it's still there kind of is a lock on. Like you kind of subconsciously learn how to use it.
The left stick is more kind of a directional lock on, but like there is no physical block the camera.
Yeah, you don't see like the icon on their head.
But also you don't need that because people die so fast.
Yeah, he also locks his body in a certain direction. So if like there's enemies towards your left, he all of a sudden will lock his body so he's facing.
Yeah, he does kind of give you a hint there.
So you kind of like you already know if you're still in combat. Like thinking you took out all the enemies, but no, there's still a couple more. It's because it's body locked and you can see.
Yeah, his body language plus the music tells you if the fight's not over.
Yeah, that's not what I wasn't talking about. Like I thought the fight was over and it wasn't. I'm talking about in the middle of a fight when there's like 3 or 4 dudes around me and I've finished one, and then after I finished the one, the camera is jacked. I don't have enough time to move the camera and get ready for that next attack. I just have to hope I can see enough of the character to see his tell so that I can parry it or dodge it and follow up with a combo or whatever. So the camera in this to me was the biggest problem, but I would also say this. This might be the prettiest video game I've ever played. That's not even hyperbole. My wife has been blown away by this game. She has not said anything about video game graphics since the Dreamcast. Literally. Like she'll walk in and be like, oh, is that like Peru or is that Italy? She asks about that stuff most when I'm playing Call of Duty, oddly enough. But this game, like, so I'm playing it and she just kept going, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's so colorful. And then she left to go to the store or whatever. She comes, as soon as she opens the door, like the way our apartment is set up, you walk in and you can see the TV right there. She opens the door and goes, oh my God, that game is so beautiful. And I was like, wow, wow. Even she can see that this game is a cut above pretty much anything else. It is just breathtaking.
She's right. I mean, I don't do the photo mode stuff much in games, not even in Last of Us 2, but I have probably 50 to 60 photo mode screenshots I've taken in this game just because every 10 minutes, every 5-10 minutes you hit something and you're just like, oh my God, look at that. I got to get a shot of that.
One breathtaking scene after another.
Last of Us 2 has better graphical fidelity. Like there's a photoreal quality to it and all that. But this thing, the use of, and I've said this since the first trailers, but the use of color and the art direction and just how it all kind of looks. I mean, there's shots of this that I've taken screenshots and sent it to some of my friends like on text messages, and they just be like, "Oh my God!" Like they're like,
it's
"Wow!"
Well, it is
also
if you're
in the first act and you're like, "Oh, this is all that it got," you've seen nothing yet.
No, there's so much more beyond that.
There's a moment in a bamboo forest where I was like, "This is like a movie, like the Japanese, Chinese movies I used to watch, and it is." Gorgeous.
I mean, the first island's freaking gorgeous. The whole thing is just beautiful. Like my wife even said, I never thought I'd see myself calling a video game gorgeous. She's like, but it just pulled it out of me. Just looking at the game. It's really that beautiful. It's gorgeous. Just amazing art, the leaves. And one thing I would say is that the The wind waypoint hasn't worked out as good as I thought it would when I saw it in like the trailers and stuff. It works, but it's a little too loose.
I love it. I think it's one of the best things I've seen all year.
I love
I hope every open world game comes up with something as organic as that, because I love just like following that around and not having to look at the map.
I might be an outlier on this, and apparently among you two I am. But so I went and started reading some reviews after I had played a huge chunk of it, and I am definitely not alone in that assessment. So
I don't understand.
33,000 people think Last of Us 2 is a 0 out of 10 too. You're not convincing me on that.
Well, those 33,000 people weren't working for gaming websites as professional journalists.
So. I guess what is it, Shane? What is it about?
The argument from authority does not sway me on that.
What is it about?
It's just like too ambiguous. Like it doesn't give me enough detail. Like I ended up turning on the waypoints.
Do you know how to you're flipping up?
I know how to set it up so I can choose. So the blue wind is for like the different collectible. I know how to use it.
I mean in regards to like flipping up onto the pad so that the wind appears.
Yeah, of course.
I'm only asked because I didn't catch that until maybe about an hour and a half in. So I thought it was difficult at first, and then I was like, "Oh, I can flip the wind." Okay, just
have you tried swiping down yet? Is the question.
Swiping down
to honor.
I don't care about swiping down so much as swiping right.
Well, if you swipe down, you can honor things, and there are tons. Yeah. There are tons of Easter eggs in the game for honor. You can honor like anything. Try it out.
Yeah,
just start messing around with it.
There's a trophy for bowing at every hidden shrine.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's also I've done like the flute can change the weather, which I think is really neat.
I think
like
if you come up like there's this one vista you come across where you could tell there was a samurai duel and there's 2 dead samurais laying there. If you do it there, I'm not going to spoil what happens, but stuff happens. And the game, if you come across stuff like that, where you're like, oh, it looks like there was a major battle here, start poking around and swiping down and you'll see the stuff happen.
It's like things like that makes this game so amazing. Like I really, really think the detail and everything is so well done in regards to with the setting, with the characters. I think the story obviously is like you guys said, it's a average and it's just kind of an overlay. But I think the examples of like talking about ghosts in the forest is like something that would be said at that time when you get to like do find legendary gear or legendary weapons. They tell these tales on these scrolls with this amazing artwork. And this is where I'm like, this is where you do the history well. Like this is where you nail the history with making it interesting.
Most of the history is completely wrong in this game.
Yeah. So first of all, samurai were not honorable warriors at all. They would kill any way they could kill. That's a total falsehood, which is weird.
They didn't use their swords. They would mostly use
because Matt points out the actually only good part of the story, in my opinion, is what Matt was talking about earlier, the undercurrent of I'm a samurai, but I'm acting like a heathen. That to me is the interesting part of the plot.
The other interesting part
is not even true. Like that's not
but also the samurai armor did not exist at this point in time. The katanas, as we know them, and as are shown in the game, did not exist at this point in time. There were proto katanas at the time, but at the time of the Mongol invasion, samurai would have mostly used spears and bows. Yeah. Lots of stuff like that just isn't a thing yet in history, but they're in here because it's what you expect to see in a samurai yarn, and it's fun. It looks, I don't care that it's not historical.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is interesting about it is it doesn't come up much. It's a little Far Cry-ish because it doesn't come up much by necessity because you can't confront the bad guy until the big finale. But I think what's his name? The main bad guy, Kodan Khan. Is really well done. He is he's a huge Mongol warlord guy. He's voiced with like very quietly. He's a kind of a genius.
He's smart.
He's learned the Japanese language. He's learned their customs because he knows it's a better way to beat them. He is an extremely intellectual bad guy. And I think that is not historically inaccurate because the Mongols were very smart tacticians, and you didn't take over most of the known world without being real smart about what you're doing. Right. But like I like that it kind of subverts what you might stereotypically think as an expectation of a Mongol warlord as being like a big rawr kind of like
no, he's very thoughtful, very well spoken.
Yeah,
he's strategic.
He's much scarier because of that. Because
he's not like a barbarian.
And a couple of times you see he tries to make him. He tries to get the uncle to join him because that's what the Mongols did. They came in, they said, you can still do all the things you normally do, just give us a cut. That's all they wanted. And so he wants to like lure your uncle over to help overthrow the shogun. And then like the idea is like, you'll be rewarded once that happens, and then we can overthrow because this one of the goals of the bad guy is he wants samurai on his side because samurai are awesome because the samurai in this game are basically, the fictional, mythical best warriors in the world. And if you have like an army of them, you can overthrow Kublai Khan.
Well, I mean, you have two of them, you can beat a whole army.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the great, like there's that one scene where you finally like rescue your master and you're fighting with him and they just throw like 20 dudes at you and you just wipe the mat with them in like 2 minutes. It's like, damn, these people are badass.
So I do enjoy the main bad guy a lot. I think
I do too. I thought they did a really good job.
But like I said, like Far Cry, he doesn't show up much. It's kind of like you got a cutscene with him a couple times in act. It's sort of like
you get the exterior shot of the castle, and then they go inside, and there he is. But I thought that they did do a really good job with him, and I was worried that he would disappear after I accomplished kind of the first big goal in the game. Because I liked him a lot, and I was like, I hope this is actually like the big guy that you have to quarrel with the whole way through. And thankfully, whenever I completed that mission, he was still the bad guy. So I was very happy about that. Do you guys find
the Far Cry game? He would have been killed at the end of Act 1.
Exactly, like Boss. You put him on the cover of the game and then kill him in the first 3 hours. Like that's the Ubisoft way. One thing I would say about this game is I think some people may find it a little boring. I have certainly had moments where I have been bored by the game. It's not big and flashy. There's not set piece moments that happen. This isn't the kind of game that I've been able to play for like 8 or 9 hours straight because I start to lose interest after a while. That was not the case with The Last of Us Part 2. If I ever put that down, it's just because it was just so brutal that I felt like I needed like a little respite or whatever. But I have found myself just kind of like drifting off, starting to look at my phone while I'm playing it. Part of it, I think, is that I do feel like it is really easy. And the other part of it is that it's just kind of this slow burn. Nothing big happens in the plot that is kind of unexpected. Like the first twist in Act 1, I saw coming a mile away. I'm sure you guys did too.
I mean, if you've seen any of these movies, like they're drawing directly from all the stories from those old movies, and like you can peg all the archetypes if you know it, and I mean, even if you don't, I mean, like it's all there, it's all pretty obvious, and it's all rather telegraphed, but that's also sort of part of the storytelling trope of these movies. It's true to the source material, I guess I'd say, and whether you think that is an excuse for how it is or not, or a good reason, they're trying to make what they're trying to make, and that may or may not resonate with someone. I have not been bored at all.
This is like your dream game.
I did play it for 10 hours straight at one point. In fact, going to Paper Mario has been an act of will. Which that's all I did yesterday was play Paper Mario, really. But like, I did enjoy Paper Mario, and actually, I would probably still be. I divide my time more between Paper Mario and this if Paper Mario wasn't so frustrating.
Yeah,
it's the opposite.
Go figure. Paper easy. Mario ended up being frustrating of the two games.
Well, here I realized I didn't realize I was enjoying myself so much until I realized how much of the map I completed. Like that was like, oh wow, I usually open world games, I will skip the side stuff all day long because I think it's tedious and boring. But here, because all the side stuff you do is meaningful to your progression.
I think you know what I think it is though. I don't think it's that. I think all games do that. I think what it is that you have these creatures leading you to the shit. And it gets me every time.
No,
if that
I don't
fox
think
is
that
there,
at all.
I'm following his ass to the shrine. If that bird is there, I'm following that bird to whatever it takes me to. And in other games, I never would have done that. If there were side missions over there, I wouldn't even have known that they existed. Like, I think that the way that they do the waypoints with the animals is a huge aid in tackling way more of this game than you normally would in other open world games like Assassin's Creed.
They're definitely attempting. As soon as I hear that bird, that little bird whistle,
I'm done.
Like, where are you going? Where are we going?
What are
we doing today, bird? Let's go.
You're supposed to go to your mission you do, and you end up doing like 20 things. You like run and do
it's because of the animals and the fox.
Store.
I've completed way more of that first island than I ever would in an open world game, and that is 100% because of the bird and the fox.
But I think at the same time, if those things that you went to weren't meaningful, I would ignore the bird. And they are meaningful. So yeah, of course.
They're also generally not on the map. So if you don't follow that bird, you may never find the thing again.
But define how they're meaningful, whereas in another game they wouldn't be. That's where I'm getting lost.
So like each thing you do contributes to upgrading Jin. So whether that's increasing
like every
resolve,
other RPG in the world.
Not everyone. Some of it is.
That's what an RPG is, Mitch.
Some of it is in regards to just giving you XP. That's slightly meaningless in a sense of because you have so much ratings you have to build up upon. Here, in regards to it, is yes, they do give you some XP, but they also do a lot of other things that meaningful progression to Jin, whether that's adding to your resolve, adding to your health.
But all games do that, Mitch.
Giving you new arm. I see it as more meaningful, and I don't.
Why?
I think it is because it impacts it directly. Like really,
all games do. You get
when I played Assassin's Creed.
Skill points. You
I
get
guess
a new
I'm comparing this a lot to
ability.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I think this is
I think what we're discovering is you really hate Assassin's Creed.
No, I just wish Assassin's Creed did this. Was more meaningful.
I don't really see much of a difference, to be honest with you. I really don't.
I think there's a difference.
What about you, Matt? Do you see a big difference between how they handle progression?
Not really. I don't. I mean, I guess it's more defined. I guess like I'm trying to think of the difference here. Like, I guess it's more defined, or it's more like straightforward, where you go and like you find the shrine, or you find the thing, or you do the bamboo cut thing, and it shows you the little meter thing, and it fills up the little bar and says you need 3 more to get a new resolve button or whatever. Whereas like Assassin's Creed is more just sort of standard, go do the thing, you'll get some XP, and eventually you'll level up and get another skill point. Like I guess like the rewards,
skill points.
The rewards in Tsushima are more discreet, or more like kind of immediate, I guess, as opposed to sort of the only grind in terms of that, I guess, is the legend, the reputation thing.
Yeah.
But I don't see a lot of. I think the difference for me is not that the things you do or the things you find in this game are more meaningful or more tangible in that regard. It's that they guide me to them organically in a way that I find very difficult to resist, even if I'm trying to do something else.
I'm helpless.
And I will spend a lot of time to something, because that bird is not bird's a little sketchy at times.
Yeah,
like sometimes
he's taken me some places where I was like, bro, you're wrong.
There's some pathfinding questions here and there, or even just things you can't get to yet, like because you don't have the upgrades or whatever, but it's still trying to lead you to a thing. And I've come back and like, all right, maybe I can get to whatever you're trying to show me, and ramming into that wall over and over again. The bird is single-minded about getting you to where you need to go. But like, I've followed that damn bird and tried to figure out where it's trying to take me.
I've died.
I've spent more time. Yeah, I've spent more time doing that than I normally would, just trying to follow a waypoint in a normal game. Yeah. So I think it's compelling in that regard. In that like following this fox and getting the fox dens, following the bird to the fox den, and then following the fox to the Inari shrine, and then petting the fox. And at this point, I've done like 30 of those fox shrines, and I'm like, I should be sick of this, yet I am not.
Yeah, me either.
Petting it is so nice. And but I think also,
or even the other shrine, the charm shrines, where like those are more like little platforming puzzles almost, where you have to like kind of work your way across like various gaps and things, and like and a lot of swinging with the grappling hook and things like that. Those are fun. Like I don't find the reward for those to be particularly interesting, because I think the charm system is a little useless. I've had the same like 5 charms hooked to my sword for like the last 10 hours. Yeah. And I was expecting like an upgrade system, or a way to like, because you get duplicate charms sometimes. So I'm like, oh, there must be a way to like forge them to get better charms, or like later on, or like you must, because you get 2 major charm slots and 3 minor charm slots. And I'm like, well, you must get a way to upgrade the minor slots to major slots, but that doesn't seem to be happening either. I feel like the charm thing is like, maybe because the major charms are also so good that like having more than 2 would kind of like make you completely invulnerable, but I think you kind of already
I feel like
are
I
that,
kind of am, honestly. Like
just let me equip all the charms. Just let me go for it.
It's like I parry something and like I get a bunch of renown and I get a chunk of my health back just with one parry. Like you can just keep parrying enemies and just watch your health go ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, I've had that one. The first charm I ever got was the Amaterasu one that gives you some health back when you kill a guy. And I'm like, why would I ever take that?
I know.
Yeah,
there's like 4 charms that you should just use and just stick with. And you don't really, the game's easy enough that you don't really need to fiddle with.
Yeah, like if I were to play this again, I would definitely play it on hard.
Me too. Absolutely. So let's start wrapping it up. I probably will play
it again, if I'm honest.
So let's start wrapping it up. The Metacritic score for this game, I believe the last time I checked was around like an 85. For me personally,
I think it's lower than that now.
Is it now?
I think the user score is like 85. I think the Metacritic, the media review score is more like 78.
What? Really? It's that low?
Let me look it up.
Some places have been giving it 7s.
But
I think this game is
6s to get to a 7.8.
I think this game is generally it's 83 now Metacritic, and the user score is 9.2.
Okay. To me, that Metacritic score is about right. Like if I were reviewing this game on a 10-point scale, I'd probably give it around an 8.5. It's really good, and there's some moments that I'm really glad I'm playing it, because there's moments in this game that I'm glad I experienced, and I appreciate that. But there are issues. Like I said, the camera. I haven't played a big budget game like this with a camera with that many issues in a while, which I was kind of taken aback by. It's almost.
I had more trouble with the camera in Days Gone.
No, that's a good point. No, you're right. That the camera in that was pretty bad too, now that I think about it. Yeah, that was probably the other game before this one where I actually even had to think about the camera. It's crazy that cameras have just become so good in games that it's something that we don't even mention. Like literally back when Matt and I worked at X-Play, a camera was like one of the biggest elements of a game.
Yeah, like, that was like thing number 3 you talked about.
Yeah,
in the review section.
Yeah, and they've gotten so good now that it's just when there is one that even has some little issues, like I'm like, whoa, that's out of the ordinary.
Yeah, because suddenly you remember that the camera's a thing. Like normally they're invisible.
I know. You know. It's like they're just so good now that you just don't even notice them. So and it is a little drab, a little dull. The game just kind of stays one note for a long time, but it is a really good game, really well crafted, one of the most beautiful games my eyes have ever seen. So I do think in this case that the average review score is probably roughly accurate.
Yeah, I'd bump it a little higher than that. It's probably a 9 in my book. But also I would say Last of Us 2 is probably a better game than this.
Yeah,
but I don't like Last of Us 2 better than this game. This is probably my favorite thing I played all year.
Interesting.
Just because I am not tired of the open world formula. Like I am not, and like
I'm not either.
I will never be tired of that. I don't think. Like probably because
that's good because
they're not going away. But like it's just sort of like I spent so much of my life like wishing that you could do that in a game that I am probably never going to get tired of actually being able to do that. We'll run around a big open world and like see stuff and do things. And
I'll say this: I don't think we'll ever see another game like this.
Until the next one.
I don't know if they'll make another one, Matt. To be honest with you, one because the game right now so far has sold about as well as Days Gone. Its opening weekend was like 7% higher than Days Gone, and 2. This is done so damn well. First of all, I think this is great. This game is crazy. I am shocked that Sony gave the the green light to this game. If I were Sony and a publisher or a studio came to me and said, we need like $200 million to make this game, and then they laid out what this game was, I never would have signed off on it. Like I just samurai games, movies, obviously Tom Cruise is going to make anything a hit, but they're just generally very niche. And I would be really surprised if this game gets a sequel. 1, because I don't think financially it would make sense. But 2, they did it so damn well. It's like nobody can make a better samurai game than this because no one's going to get as much money to make a samurai game as Sucker Punch just got from Sony. So I just say enjoy it because this, to me, is really an anomaly in this industry that you would make such a big budget game on something so niche. But at the same time, it's a very classy game. There's a lot of games that I have to play where I'm like, if my wife walks in, I'm going to be embarrassed when she does at this moment. There's nothing like that in this game. It's just clean and classy, but I would say a little dull and maybe a little boring in spots.
I mean, I think a lot of people would say that that's sort of a good description of Kurosawa. So
yeah, that's true.
They nailed it.
That's a good point.
And I do appreciate that the black and white subtitled tinny speaker mode is literally called Kurosawa mode.
Yeah.
But like, I think we will see another one if Sucker Punch wants to make one. They may feel like they're done after this because, like you said, I feel like they nailed what they were after.
Yeah.
There might not be a lot of room for improvement, really. The tweaking would be so subtle that I don't know if it would read too well as a sequel. If you know what I mean, if that makes sense.
No, I get it. I understand.
But I love it to death. Like there is sort of, I agree with you that there's moments in this game where I'm just like, how is this a game? How is this real? How did you get this made? Like even more than something like Days Gone, where my reaction to Days Gone is like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why would
but
you?
But it's like zombies, so you get.
You get like why you could have greenlit it. It's like, I'm like, I don't like. It feels boring and sort of like played out to me. Although the actual final game was more interesting, like when your hands were in it. But like the preview stuff of that was just like, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
Whereas like this, I'm just like yes, I've wanted an open world feudal Japan game for like 12, 15 years. And the only like ray of hope for it was like if they decided to do that in Assassin's Creed, which they never have because there's a whole internal thing with Assassin's Creed where they are not ninjas. They are not ninjas. They are assassins. And
it's like in the franchise Bible or something.
Yeah, that was a big thing early on. Was like they aren't ninjas. Don't make them ninjas. Like we can't pretend they're ninjas, like just they're assassins and
yeah,
which is ironic because the assassins as portrayed in Assassin's Creed are much more like the real life ninjas than the ninjas we see in video games most of the time. But that's a tangent. But like, but then here comes the people who made Infamous and Sly Cooper of all things that made this giant epic samurai game.
Bizarre,
and I'm like, all right. Although there's moments where like there's some Sly Cooper in this game.
Yeah,
following the guys like to the thing, going along the ropes like this. And also the other thing I forgot about because it's a minor thing, but it's more of a moment. You follow footprints a lot in this game.
Yeah, a lot of tracking,
like a lot. Like a lot. And like there's a couple moments, there've been a couple times when like the time of day it was happening was just, I'm like, I can't see anything. Like it's so beautiful and like the light is shining and glaring through it. I'm just like, that's cool, but I can't see the ground clearly right now.
So Matt,
so we're just gonna have to stand here until the sun sets and I can follow your footprints better. Like,
so
I've done that
Matt,
like twice.
I ran into that where I had a merchant that was trying to sell me like a skin for my sword and I bought it.
And you can't tell what color it is.
Yeah, you can't tell what color it is because of the lighting. So then all of a sudden I realized it was purple. And I was like, what?
So when you get to the Act 2 section, the merchants up in the Act 2 area sell different colored stuff for your armor and your clothing and stuff.
I've seen
so the first time I'm like, cool, I can get new dyes and see this. And then but it was that certain. You can, but they're different in Act 2 is what I'm saying.
Yes, yeah, they're different.
Like so I wanted to get some of the new dyes on my the Ronin costume is what I use most of the time.
I use the same thing.
And I'll switch to the samurai armor if like one of my samurai armors.
I use samurai armor. I only use the Ronin for the mission I needed it for.
But like I like the Ronin because he looks like the standard wandering samurai from all those movies. So I just like that look. Especially for photo mode, I do way more. I do way more for photo mode. But no, it's not that.
The armor isn't that important.
It only matters if you like you say if you're doing a stealth mission, the Ronin thing is useful because they spot you slower.
Yep.
That's the only point.
Yeah.
But like I went up and I went to because I wanted new colors for it, and like I couldn't. The time of day was wrong, so I couldn't tell what color they were. I'm like, well, I'll come back later. And the next like 3 or 4 times I came back to that area, it was the exact same time of day. And I at one point I was like, I'm just going to stand here until the sun changes and I see what damn color you're trying to sell.
You could have called up the sun with your flute. So I guess that's the way you could solve it. But
the flute can make the weather clear, but I don't have the song that can make it day to night yet.
No.
The first song you get makes it daytime. I thought.
I've never even used it.
It clears the weather.
I've never even used it.
Oh, I have to double check it. But
the flute's great, and but swipe right is the best thing in that, which absolutely. Is fling the blood off the sword and resheath.
Wipe it off, or it's just such a way to end. For me, I'm similar with Matt. I'm playing this in the 9 range, and I'm torn because even though I think Last of Us is such an amazing narrative experience, I love playing this game more. And so
that's a good point. So I like this game better.
Yeah, I think it's a better game, than The Last of Us Part 2, but as like an overall experience, I probably would say The Last of Us Part 2 is better.
The Last of Us 2 is probably still the best story I've ever been told in a game.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And so for me, it's been a little tricky because, you know,
I think and for me, they're equal. Like, I like some parts of The Last of Us Part 2's gameplay better. I like some parts of Ghost of Tsushima's gameplay better. They just kind of equal out ultimately for me.
Well, for me, the difference with me and Matt in this one, which we have differences, is that I was sick of open worlds. And for some reason, I'm not sick of this one. Now, maybe part of it is the setting. I really love like having a feudal Japan open world game. But I thought I'd be like, okay, I'll do a couple side missions, I'll do a couple like collectibles, and then I'll move on. Where I love doing it all. I love every bit of it. So I'm surprised by that for me. And I think overall, the real question for me will be is when Assassin's Creed comes out, is there going to be a debate between these two games because they are very similar in regards to trying to be, and obviously we've established that this isn't totally historically correct, but it's trying to be a past going off those types of game off that medium, but that will be under the question of which one will get a nod for a game of the year nomination. And
or they both can. I
think they both will.
Yeah.
They're both contenders. And also I have wondered that about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, just because the organic nature of how they guide you through the world in this with the wind and the animals is so good that like going back to a standard waypoint system is going to be tough.
I actually just ended up turning on the standard waypoint system.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah,
I didn't know you
can go
could
into
do
the
that
accessibility.
See, that's the thing is I don't find the wind thing vague at all. I find it very precise, as precise as it needs to be. The animal stuff is great. Like I just like that way of interacting with the world is more interesting to me. But also I'm the person who left the vague guidance things on for Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Right. See, I didn't do that for Odyssey. So for me, it shows a difference that Sucker Punch did a better job of doing it with using nature than doing it with Assassin's Creed. I think that like the significant difference with that is you rely on the eagle to like find the location, where the wind really does guide you to it. And then like if you get near it, the bird will bring you to the exact location if you miss it with the wind.
It just got silly. It was cool the first couple times. After that, I'm like, this is annoying. I just turned on the waypoint. I mean, I don't know how you can argue against that. Like, it's not as accurate as just using a waypoint. If you want to go through the contrivance of it, fine, but
sure, but
I don't. I got sick of it.
I think the one time the waypoint definitely would come a little more handy is when I'm in the bases and I have to collect the things.
Exactly. How about sometimes where the wind is just going like straight up and you're like spinning in circles and you're like, where am I supposed to? Am I here?
Seen the wind go.
I look down at the ground. Never had that happen.
I've never had that happen.
Yeah. It happens to me all the time.
I've never had a problem. The only issues I've ever run into have been like you're clearing out the fort or whatever, and they want you to blow up the gunpowder thing, and I don't know where that is because it. And you get close enough to it, it marks it. But like, I'm like, okay, so where's the gunpowder? I don't know.
I also accidentally ended a mission early, blowing that thing up. Like I hadn't finished cleaning up the area. I had killed all the enemies, and I had not finished getting all the loot. And I went up to one of those wagons with TNT on it and lit it, and it blew up and lit the whole thing on fire, and I lost all the loot.
Oh no.
Another one of those, like, you don't know what's going to happen until you hit it, and then there's no going back, but whatever. Anyway, so there you go. That's Ghost of Tsushima, available exclusively for PlayStation 4. How good is that game going to look on PS5, my friends?
Yeah, that's why I'm pretty sure I will.
Wow. Whoo! Can't even imagine.
Well, then they're saying Miles Morales is a 4K 60 frames a second mode on this thing.
That's crazy.
Hype. Get hype.
That's crazy.
So anyway, all three of us are saying buy it. We all really like it to different degrees for different reasons, but I don't think you'll go wrong. I don't know if you're going to grind through the game like you would maybe other games, but you're going to enjoy every time you play it. You're going to get a lot of playtime out of it. I've spent like 20 hours on it, maybe a little less, and I'm only like a third of the way through the game, a little more. So
yeah, I think if you beelining the main story, if you can manage to do that, is still like 17, 18 hours.
Yeah, it's a big one.
But you won't do that. Like there's, why would you?
You'd have to be dead inside to do that in this game. Seriously,
this may be the first game I might 100% in quite a while. Like,
wow. It does make it easier because you're just organically collecting a lot more stuff than you normally do. Tiny2K, thank you for all of those tier 1 subs. You're freaking awesome. Again, every week you come in here and you help out our crew, man. I love it. Appreciate it very much. Les David, thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. JM Rain, thank you for the bits that you've given us. Suicide King, thank you for Twitch Prime. Bobby Budnick, thank you for Twitch Prime. You guys are awesome. It's time for a word from our sponsor. Get your questions into the chat and we'll answer them when we get back.
Ready to get away from it all without losing all the comforts of home? DeShazer Ryan Realty has a once-in-a-lifetime 200-acre estate for sale in Libby, Montana that gives new meaning to the phrase roughing it. This eye-popping main lake house on this sprawling estate has 4 bedrooms and bathrooms, phone, and internet. There are also separate guest and caretaker houses. It's the first time this property has ever been for sale, so don't let the chance to buy a slice of outdoor heaven pass by. It can be yours for $3.4 million. If you're interested, no matter where you live, contact Doug DeShazer at 406-291-1643 or deshazermt@gmail.com. He can also connect you with local realtors who can help you with your specific needs. If you want to see more, head on over to www.snowshoeranchmt.com. That's snowshoeranchmt.com.
Now, whenever I look at that, I'm like, Ghost of Tsushima looks really good like that. Like
Bunko just wrote the house is taken right from Far Cry 5. It's kind of true, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah, Montana.
Yep. But big thanks to DeShazer Ryan Realty. Sponsorships for us make a huge difference, like huge. So thank you very, very much. If you guys are looking for property, please help him out, because if you call him and you inquire about that stuff, he'll sponsor us again. It can make a big difference for us. So thank you to DeShazer Ryan Realty, man. Really, really appreciate it. Let's get to some questions. I'll answer Johnny Hurricanes first, because he's like our greatest patron ever, and I'll always answer all his questions. Y'all gonna do a spoiled on Ghost of Tsushima? No. I don't think it's suitable for a spoiled.
Yeah, I don't think the story really warrants it.
There's not enough twists and turns.
Unless a whole lot of crazy stuff happens.
Right, in the last act. Like you're right. Maybe that's how I should have couched it. Is look, if I keep playing this and it changes drastically from the way it is now, yes. If the plot keeps working kind of the way it is, you'll see, and maybe you already know, but it's not really conducive to a spoiled. Last of Us Part 2 was gold for spoiled. It was hard, but it was gold. But this game, probably not, unless, as Matt said, things drastically changed later on in the game. Commander Fett 03. What would you like to see more historical games like Ghost of Tsushima instead of the more loosely historically accurate take that Assassin's Creed takes? So do you like loosey or airtight with your historical accuracy?
I think it depends on the setting. Like, I do appreciate that Tsushima doesn't use mythical stuff. Like there's
or like demons or spirits or any of that.
Like Jin is a very skeptical man for his time period. He's just like, I was like, there's demons in the forest. He's like,
no, there's not. Very pragmatic. I think you have to be to live the life that he was living, for sure.
But so I like that, but I also like it when Odyssey brings in Cyclopses and stuff like that. It's cool too. But there's so many games involving swords in Japanese mythology that it's refreshing to have one that isn't dealing with the mythology. So I like that aspect of it.
I think the more the question is like, it's just how it's done. Like, how do you tell the story, regardless of if you're telling it accurately or inaccurately in regards to the history? As long as it's told well, it shouldn't matter to me, at least.
I guess.
I just want whatever makes the game better. Bottom line, I don't care whether that means being historically accurate. I don't care if that means being loosey-goosey with history. Whatever it takes to make the game better I'm all for.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this game on some level is just the best Assassin's Creed game that Ubisoft has continually refused to make. The only other kind of alteration I would maybe make in that regard is, can you imagine this game with the Nemesis system from Shadow of War?
Yeah, that would have been great.
That would be a whole different ball game
and things like that. That would be great.
That would be the only thing I could think of that would be something you could do for a sequel, would be to expand it that much and have it be like, I don't know, some more fantastical scenario where Jin gathers a group of an army and goes to China and tries to attack, invade the Mongols, which would never have worked in real life. But if you want to do a Shadow of War kind of thing, could possibly work for a sequel to this.
Here's a good one. OCD Master 1. And Matt, you'll be the perfect person to answer this. How does Tsushima's combat compare to Sekiro?
It's not
easier.
as good. It's not as good as Sekiro. Yeah, it's not as good as Sekiro. It's definitely more forgiving.
Yeah.
The parry windows are much larger. However, if you are sloppy, you can die in like 3 hits.
Yeah.
Like the swords are very sharp in this.
You have to pay attention for sure.
And they can interrupt you, and like the archers are annoying because they'll pick at you from the sides. And like you can't just like go swinging your sword around and not get interrupted by the arrows, and like so it's not like there's nothing there. It's like you don't have to use your brain, but once you get the mechanics down, it's all kind of in place. And also, you're always just fighting humans. You're always just fighting. You know what you're going after. And it's with Sekiro, sometimes you're just like, all right, come around the corner, and it's a 20-foot tall monster, and I don't know what to do right now.
Yeah.
So I would say the combat is harder in Sekiro. I would say the combat is more rewarding in Sekiro once you get it down. But I really enjoy what Tsushima is doing. But as Mitch said, it's more of an Arkham combat than a From Software combat.
Yeah, that's what I was basically going to say too.
Emperor Dread, what are your favorite things to snack on while you play games? No one asks enough questions like this during our chats at the end. I'm hungry but indecisive. What about you, Matt? What's your favorite gaming snack?
I don't eat while I'm playing.
At all?
No.
Why is that?
Because that's how you get messy shit on the controller.
That's true.
So I'll eat. If I'm going to eat something, I stop and eat. I don't eat while I'm playing. I will drink while I'm playing, but that's about it.
What about you, Mitch? You have a gaming snack?
No, I'm same with Matt. I don't eat while I play. Like I'll stop. Like if it's when I stop, I usually will eat something to kind of match what the game is, either like the setting or the flow. So I've been eating a lot of ramen lately. But
all right. I eat graham crackers when I play games. Cinnamon graham crackers. I pull out a sleeve and I set it right next to me, right next to the couch, and I pull out a sleeve, crack it in half, stick it in my mouth, and eat it while I'm playing. And they're my favorite gaming snack. I don't know how they became that way or why, but that's just the way it is.
Also, it takes time away from holding the controller. Like, I want to play the game. I don't want
cinematics. That's when you eat.
Oh, more like cinnamon-matics.
Cinnamon-matics. That's good. I like that. Here's one from Vincent. People are asking if you're going to do a hangout for the Xbox event like you did for the PS5 one. No. Unfortunately, on Thursday, I have to get my taxes done. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to even watch the Xbox thing live, unfortunately. I got an appointment to get our taxes done. It was like the only appointment our accountant has for like the next 3 months. And as it is, I had to file an extension just because obviously the deadline just passed. I really thought they were going to extend the deadline again, but they didn't. So anyway, I have to do my taxes on Thursday, so I'm probably not going to have time to do something like that. Unfortunately, duty calls is one of those things I just can't put off anymore.
If you want something to do during that time, I will be live tweeting it. So if you guys want to like hop on there and comment and stuff, I'll gladly talk to you guys during the stream.
Okay, last question from Ed Rock the Truth. Did you have an issue with the brightness settings in Ghost of Tsushima? I find it extremely difficult to see indoors, especially at night. Have no issue with any other game.
No,
I have not.
I have not.
Haven't had as a matter of fact, the only game I've had any kind of brightness issues recently is Destiny 2. I have had to mess with the HDR settings on that thing endlessly because when I go inside anything, I can't see anything. And it didn't used to be that way. I don't know what happened.
Now, I do have a plasma that handles blacks really well, and that might help a little bit. But yeah, I haven't really had any issues with anything like that.
No, I mean, I did obviously the HDR settings at the beginning when the game starts and something, but I haven't had a problem with any of that. Yep. It all works pretty well.
All right. So that's it for GameFace.
Except for seeing the fucking footprints. Sometimes, but that's a lighting thing.
They are hard to see sometimes, you're right.
Well, I mean, at least it's better. I mean, I kind of give them credit for at least not doing like a Witcher sense where it kind of feeds the path for you. You actually have to find the footprints.
Right. But a couple times I've been like, you know what? I wish I just had the Witcher sense.
There was one time I did.
You start to see why they do that. You start to see why games have that.
Yeah, for sure. There was one time I realized that for sure.
All right. This time it really is it for GameFace 221 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. If you're watching the show on YouTube or you're listening to it on any of the 5 or 6 podcast services. Also, by the way, if you're searching for the show is now just called GameFace. So you can just search for GameFace and the show will pop up. So that's been fixed. But if you're listening on any of the podcast services, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever, you're watching on YouTube and you want to help us out because we are supported 100% by user donations, please head over to patreon.com/sifted and kick us a couple bucks. If you want to stay on YouTube, you can actually subscribe to our content right on YouTube now. Just click the join button on our channel page and all the options are right there. We'd really appreciate it if any of you guys could help us out. Thanks to everybody who's helping us with Twitch Prime. We had our best month ever last month. Let's keep it going. It does make a big difference for us. If you want to stay in touch with what's going on with Sifted on Twitter, follow us at Sifted Games. It's a great way to get alerts when we're going live on Twitch or when we publish something new, depending on what kind of a subscriber that you are. So make sure you follow us there. You can follow me on Twitter at Dinfire. You can find Matt on Twitter at MKyle, that's Keil. And you can find Mitch on Twitter at Mitch Secor. On behalf of my bros, GameFace 221 is up and out.